Hey guys, MEP Guy here, and in this video I'm going to show you guys how to model this entire plumbing system inside of Revit using these free families from Zurn.com. Now these plumbing fixture families are really well done. I've talked to the team at Zurn to make sure that all of their families were built correctly using, the right file size, the right kind of connectors, anything that we would care about for modeling inside of Revit. Now I've used Zurn plumbing fixtures ever since I started as a plumbing engineer. I do really recommend their products, and they have some really cool new products that really save the contractors some time, the owner money, and actually help the engineers in really new ways. So I'm going to talk about those products in this video. This video is sponsored by Zurn, so make sure to check out their plumbing fixture families, and I'll have a link down in the description where you can download all these families, and also check out my website where I'll have some free videos for you guys going into more details on some of the things I'm going to be talking about inside of this video. So let's get started. All right, so we're going to get started here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up a brand new project. So I'm going to go to New, and we're going to go to Browse, and we're going to select the plumbing default template. We're going to click OK. Now it's going to open up a blank screen here, so we need to insert the architectural model. So I'm going to go up to Insert, Link Revit, and we're going to click on the Zurn Bathroom RVT file, and this is the architectural file, and I'm going to click on Open. Once the file loads, you'll see that it gets placed in the view. And we might want to clean this up a little bit. The first thing I'm noticing is I don't want to really see these scope boxes right here, and I don't really need to see these reference planes or elevation markers in my view. So I can clean them up by going to View, Visibility Graphics, and then under Visibility Graphics we can kind of get rid of the annotation categories. So we can completely get rid of all the annotation categories by clicking this button and hitting Apply, and you can see they're all gone completely. So let's just go with that and click OK. And now let's take a look at our bathroom. So the first thing I might want to do is make sure I have the view set up correctly. Right now we have a medium level of detail, so we could change that if we need to. We also have it in hidden line, which is a pretty good view to use when you're doing plumbing modeling. Now I also want to open up a 3D view, because when you're doing plumbing you want to see what the fixtures and the piping is looking like in the real model space. So I'm going to go to View, and we're going to click on this little house and open up a default 3D view. And it looks great, and I'm going to do the same thing where I'm going to get rid of the annotation categories. So I'm going to go up to View, Visibility Graphics, and we're just going to go to Annotation Categories and uncheck this box and click OK. And now you can see we have our little bathroom right here. Now the first thing I might want to do is clear this up a little bit. Instead of a medium level of detail, I'm going to go to a fine level of detail, and you can see my fixtures get a little bit more detailed, and that's pretty much what I want in a 3D view. Now we're in a plumbing view, because if you look over here on the 3D property, you can see that the discipline is set to plumbing. Now if we want to set it to like architectural, you're going to notice that the view gets changed, and that's because in an architectural view the walls are going to be opaque. They're not going to be transparent. So if I change this back to a plumbing view, you'll see that the walls get transparent, which helps me when I'm modeling. So I might want to keep that on, but actually I kind of like the architectural view, so I'm going to keep it on architectural, and I'm going to change the visual style to shaded, and now I can really see what the bathroom looks like. Unfortunately, I can't see anything past this wall. So there's a couple things I might want to do. I might want to kind of cut my view a little bit using a section box. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that real quick. So the first thing I might want to do is go to Visibility Graphics, and I have to go back to the annotation categories and turn them back on, and I have to make sure I turn on section box. So I'm going to go down to S here, and I'm going to make sure section box is turned on, but I am going to turn off scope box, planes, and levels. I'm going to click Apply, click OK, and then I'm going to turn on my section box right here. And now you can see I have a section box. So I can use this to kind of drag these grips over, and now you can see I can see kind of into my building. So I really like this view right here because I can see everything pretty clearly. And I'm going to just start modeling from here. So I'm going to move my 3D view over to the right side of the screen by dragging it over. And we're going to drag it into where the little scroll space is, just like that. And if we want to temporarily hide this section box, we can. We can just click the little sunglasses down here and hit Hide Element, and it's just hiding that temporarily. So that looks great. Now let's look back on our floor plan. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a backflow preventer. So we're going to go to zern.com and download one of their backflow preventers from their website. So here I am at zern.com. I'm on the main page right here, and you can see that it's very well laid out. I need to go to water control and backflow right here. And you can see backflow preventers are right here. So I'm going to click on them. And we're going to start with a reduced pressure principle. Now the thing I like about Zern fixtures and equipment is that they kind of tell you which ones are the best sellers. So you know, like, those are the most popular ones contractors and owners are buying. So I trust this product, so I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And you can see it lists the specs and installation right here, so you can easily locate them. If I want to look at the spec sheet, I can click on it right here, and you can see all the information I would need to specify this piece of equipment on my plans. You can see some other things like the pressure loss charts down here and some other things. Also the discharge rate of different size RPZs. So all that information is right here. So that's really why I love Zern products. Now we're back on this page, so I want to go ahead and download this Revit file. So I'm going to go to BIM resources right here, and you can see a bunch of different types of families pop up. I'm going to go ahead and use this flanged 2.5 to 10 inch right here. So I'm going to click on it. And once I click on it, it's going to take me to BIM object to download it. So I might have to log in if you don't already have a login, but I'm going to go ahead and click allow. And my download is now starting, so everything's good to go. So I'm going to go to my computer and download this file. So now we're back at Revit. So all I have to do is I have to go up to Insert, Load Family, and I'm just going to look in my Downloads folder, and you can see that the device that I've downloaded is right here for me. So I'm going to just click on Open. It's going to upgrade the family to 2024, and now it's in my project. So I'm going to go ahead and insert this into the floor plan. So I'm going to go to Systems. Now the backflow is probably a pipe accessory, so you're going to click on this button right here. And the last one I loaded in is right up here. So if I click into the floor plan and I kind of zoom in on this water service room, you can see it right here. Now I can't really see the 3D or details of this. It's kind of just giving me a schematic view. So if I want to see more detail, I go down here and click on Find, and now I can kind of see what this device looks like. So I'm going to click here. And what you can also do is hit the space bar. Once you've clicked on it, you can hit the space bar and you can see you can rotate this device. Now you'll see it down here in my 3D room, or my room down here. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of look at it. And I'm going to click back into the floor plan and hit the space bar, and you can see it's rotating in the 3D view as well. So I'm going to make sure that the out is down. One thing I'm noticing is this is a 10-inch backflow preventer. It's probably not going to need a 10-inch for this building. So I'm going to click on the drop down up here for my types, and I'm going to select this 4-inch backflow preventer. And you can see it gets a lot smaller. Now you'll notice that the accessory is on the floor. I don't want that. I want to bring it up a little bit so it has room for that discharge. So I'm going to raise it by going to elevation from level, and we'll just raise it up 2'6". So I'm going to type in 2 space 6, and that will give me 2'6". And you can see the backflow preventer device moves up a little bit. So now we have this, and we're just going to kind of move it into place. I want to make sure it's off the wall a little bit so it gives space for the contractor to install. And that's looking pretty good. Now to draw piping off of this, you can click on the backflow preventer device and click this button right here, Create Pipe, and it's going to create 4-inch pipe. Now you have to make sure you're on the right pipe type, and you also have to make sure you have the right diameter and everything. So this is looking good. So I'm going to go to a point about right here and click and hit Escape. Now I don't think this was on the right system, so if I need to change that, I can click into my pipe, and then I can go to the system type, and we're going to select domestic cold water. And you'll notice once I do that, the entire device and pipe turn blue. And that's because we've now applied a system to this pipe and this device. So now you'll see it in blue outline. So this is looking great. Now I also need to show that the water is coming into the building below the ground. And so if I want to continue my pipe, I can click on it and right click right here and click on Draw Pipe. And now I need to change the elevation. Instead of 2'6", I'm going to change it to -4 feet. And then we're just going to start drawing off to this direction. Now you'll notice that nothing is showing up here, and that's because we need to change our view range. So I'm going to go ahead and click right here and hit Escape. And we need to be able to see this piping below the ground. So all we have to do is go into the floor plan properties over here, and we're going to click on View Range Edit, and we're going to change the bottom to unlimited and the view depth to unlimited. So that's looking good. So we also want to draw piping off this direction right here. So I'm going to click, and I'm going to click this button, and it's going to start drawing some pipe. Maybe we'll draw it to a point right there. That looks good. And now this time I want to raise my piping up. So let's raise it up to, I don't know, 10 feet. So we're going to click on, type in 10 up here on middle elevation, and then we're just going to start drawing our piping off to this direction into our fictitious building. And I'm going to go ahead and move this down, so you can literally just drag your piping to move it, which is really nice about Revit. And this is looking great. So now we have this 4-inch pipe right here that's going into our building, and everything's looking really good. So I might want to kind of think about where I want to put my water lines and my branches to my fixtures. So if we think about this, we might want to have a branch down to the water closets, we might want to have one to the lavatories, and we might want to have one down to our urinals. So maybe I'll start drawing a branch. So all I have to do to continue drawing piping is I'm going to right click an existing pipe, and we're going to say Create Similar. And the reason I like using Create Similar is because it puts the piping at the same elevation as this pipe. So I'm going to change the diameter to 2 inch, and then I'm going to click a point about right here, and then we're going to put a 2 inch about right here. And that's going to be our water supply to our flush valve water closets. Now I'm going to also click on this pipe, right click, Create Similar. It's going to put it at the same elevation. I'm going to change this to maybe 3/4 inch, and this is going to be our supply for our lavatories. And you can see I didn't get it in the midpoint right there, but all we have to do is click on it and kind of drag it over to the midpoint. Something like that looks good. And now I can also do the same thing for the urinals. I might want to use a 2-inch pipe, so I'm going to go to Create Similar. And maybe I want to use 1.5 inches. So let's select 1.5 inches, and we're just going to click and click right there. And you can see we have the start of that pipe. Now I'm not going to bring it down to the fixtures just yet, because we need to get the fixtures into our model first. So how do we do that? Well, what we can do, since the architect has already used these plumbing fixtures from Zurn in their model, we can use what's called batch copy and basically take all of the plumbing fixtures from the architect's model and place them into our model. So this only works if the architect's using Zurn's plumbing fixtures. And so you might want to talk to your architects and make sure they are kind of using the correct fixtures that are going to actually be installed on the job. So we're going to go up to Collaborate. We're going to go up to Copy Monitor, and we're going to say Select Link. And we're just going to select the architectural link right here and click. And now we're up here, and we're going to go to Batch Copy. I'm going to specify the type mapping. So I'm going to click on that, and then we're going to go down to Plumbing Fixtures, and we're just going to say Copy Behavior, Allow Batch Copy, and it's just going to copy the original that was in the architectural model. So we're going to click on Copy, and it's going to say levels have not been copied yet. Do you want to do this? So we need to make sure that our levels are copy monitored in our model. So let's go ahead and do that first. So I'm going to hit cancel here, and we're going to go to a elevation view. So I'm going to go to the south elevation right here. And what we need to do is we need to make sure that our levels match the architect's. You can see right now they don't. Level 1 looks fine, but level 2 needs to be raised up. So all we have to do is go to Modify, Align. I'm going to align this level right here. So this is where we want to go. And that's in the architect's model to this level right here, which is in our model. And now we're good. I'm going to go ahead and drag these levels over so you can see them a little bit, and we'll zoom in. And now I have to use what's called Copy Monitor, so that way if the architect moves their levels up, we know there's a notification that comes up telling us, hey, the architect moved the levels up. What do you want to do? Do you want to move your level up too? So it's good to use that Copy Monitor technique. So we're going to go to Collaborate, and we're going to go to Copy Monitor, select link, we're going to click, and then we're going to go to Monitor, and we're just going to click on our level and then their level. And you'll see there's going to be a little heartbeat that shows up. And let's do the same thing for level 1. We're going to click on our level and then their level. And you're going to see there's going to be another heartbeat. All right, we're going to finish that off. And then when I click on the level 2 right here, you can see a little heartbeat, meaning that it's being monitored. You can also see up here, it's basically telling us, hey, you're monitoring this. Do you want to stop monitoring? No, we don't. We just did it. So we're going to keep that. And then you can see level 1, it also has that little heartbeat. So let's try the batch copy again. So we're going to go back to copy monitor. We're going to, first let's go to our floor plan. Let's go to copy monitor, select link, click it, and then we're going to go to batch copy, specify the type. We're going to go to plumbing fixtures. We're going to say allow batch copy, and we're going to click on copy. And it's going to run through the process of copying all the fixtures from the architect's model into our model. And once it's done, you have to click the finish button. If we hover into one of the fixtures, you can see we can now select it. And you can see there's also this little heartbeat right here, meaning that it's being monitored. Now, moves the fixtures. I don't necessarily want to move my fixture as well. I want my fixture to stay in place until I move it myself, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the plumbing fixtures in the model by just using a window selection right here. And all I'm going to say is click this button called Stop Monitoring. And once I do that, all the fixtures will be unmonitored. So now I'm not monitoring them. So if the architect moves them, nothing's going to happen to my model and it's not going to break my piping. So that's important. Now you can see if we zoom in here that we have a little bit of an issue with the way the flush valve came in. I also want to, it's this new flush valve that Zurn has created. And let's go take a look at this on there. And I've clicked on sensor flush valves and it's taken me to this page. So you can kind of get a feel for some of their products. And we're taking a look at this gear driven hydro-powered flush valve. Now this thing is pretty cool. There's a gear in there and basically it allows the flush valve to close slowly. So typically we would have a solenoid. And so with these fixtures, you don't really need a water hammer arrestor because the way they close is slower. Another advantage to them is they have what's called hydropower. And what that is it's kind of charging as you're flushing. So those are two cool features of these, and they also look really great. So I would highly recommend checking these out. If you want to download them, you can basically download it right here by clicking on the BIM resource. If you want to take a look at the spec sheet, you can do it right here. So make sure you check out these products because they're very, very nice. And they've really come up with some great ideas. Now, since the architect had already placed the Zurn fixtures in their model, I didn't have to download them, which made my life a little easier. So make sure you talk to your architects. Now we need to move this flush valve down. And so there's a couple ways to do it. We could go ahead and change these values over here. You can see there's a valve height. Maybe if we drop that down to 1 foot, look at that, it matches up perfectly. But if we didn't do that, there's another way we could do it. We could go to view and we could draw a section. So I'm going to start drawing a section here. And it's not going to show up because remember we took away the annotations. So I might want to bring those back. So I'm going to go back to visibility graphics and go to annotation categories, and we're going to show annotations, but I'm going to get rid of elevation, scope boxes, and we're going to click OK. So now I'm going to double click on this section box and it's going to take me to this section. And what I can do from here is I can simply just click on one of the flush valves and I can just move it down just like that into place. So that's kind of cool. So, Zurn has created these fixtures in a way that allows you to kind of use these grips to move the flush valve up and down, which is really helpful. So they've taken a lot of time to make these families work well for us. So I happen to know that all of these need to be at 1 foot. So I'm just going to go ahead and use a window selection and select them all and then just change the valve height all at once to 1 foot. And look at that, everything looks great. Let's go back to our floor plan view, to the water closets. So I'm just going to hold shift and use my middle mouse wheel and kind of orbit around. And you can see the water closets right here. We have to do the same thing. So let's go ahead and select all the flush valves right here and change those to 1 foot. And you're going to see that something's going on right here. So we might need to change this one to something different. I think it needs to be changed to, I don't know, maybe 10 inches. Oops, I think I made that 10 foot. 10 inches. There we go. Now everything's looking perfect and we can go ahead and start connecting these flush valves up. So to do that, all we have to do is usually when I'm connecting to fixtures, I want to start at the fixture. The reason why is because I want to start at the correct elevation. So I'm just going to click on this little button, create pipe, and it's going to create some standard pipe. It's going to automatically put it on the cold water system, and then I'm just going to start drawing off this way. So right here, and then I'm just going to draw it off to this way because I want to connect to this main. Now you'll notice Revit allows us to kind of automatically stop in the right place because there's like a reference to that other piece of pipe. So Revit's smart enough to know that. So we can just click right here. And then all we have to do is drag this piece into this one. Boom. And now these two connect. So now remember what we talked about the discipline? I might want to go ahead and turn on the plumbing discipline. So right now I have architectural. I'm going to turn on plumbing. And you'll notice that now I can see through the walls and I can kind of see my piping. So this is looking much better. I also might want to go ahead and move the section box so that this big piece of pipe is not in my way. So if I want to do that, remember we put it under the sunglasses, so we can click reset and then we can go back and just kind of move this out, and now I can see that a little better. And I'm going to go ahead and hide it again so it's not distracting, and look at that. And so now I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to make the connections. I have a bunch of different techniques for you guys to use. One of my favorite techniques is using connect into. And so what I'll do is I'll actually select the flush valve right here, and I'm going to go up here to connect into and click, and then we're just going to click on our pipe. And look at that, it automatically makes that connection to this main in the wall, and it's just really easy. You can also do it from a 3D view. So if you click on the flush valve, hit connect into, and then click the pipe, the connection gets made automatically. Now it's using the connector size, so it's using this 1-inch connector size for the size of the pipe. You could also do it the old-fashioned way, so I could select the flush valve right here, and I can just click this button, and then I can just go into the pipe just like that, and click, and that's looking great. I can also do it from the main, so if I want to use a 1-inch pipe, so I might want to click on, I don't know, this piece right here, and right-click and say create similar. And as you notice, like I hover into this, you'll notice, well, usually it works. Let me try that again. As I hover into this, see how it highlights the flush valve? That means that I'm exactly in the right spot as that connector. So I can click, and then I can just click the connection point right here. So there's a ton of different ways to do things in Revit. Now for this one, this last one, it's going to be a little more tricky because if I go right into this part, it's going to create a bowl T, and I don't really want to do that. I'd rather connect maybe up here. And so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to keep drawing, and then I'm going to have to raise this piping up. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So let's start by just drawing from this flush valve. So we're going to draw just like this. Now it's not snapping, so I'm just going to have to go over to this way. And now I want to move the piping up. So let's go ahead and move it up to here. Right now we're at 2'3", so I'm going to go up to 3 foot maybe. And then I'm just going to draw my piping this way. And you'll notice that the piping gets brought up and then over. And now I want to align these pipes together. So I'm going to go to Modify, Align, and we're going to click on the midpoint of this pipe and make sure it matches this one. And look at that. Now I'm going to use a command called Trim Extend, Single Element, and I'm going to click it. And all I have to do is click where I want to go and click on the pipe. And boom, it automatically makes that connection for me in 3D. So it's very helpful to be modeling in 3D when you're in Revit. All right, so that's looking great. And I'm pretty much done with the water closets over here. Now I might want to size this thing. I think the piping's probably a little too small to handle these 5 water closets. So here's a little trick for you guys. So when you want to upsize or select a piece of pipe, if you select one of the elements like this T right here, and then I go down to where I want to select, so I want to select everything in between this point right here, I can hit Tab, and it will automatically select all that run of pipe. Then I'm going to hit Control, or then I'm just going to click, and you'll see that all of this pipe network gets selected. Now the supplies did not get selected, which is fine. And now I'm just going to change this to the diameter of 2 inches. And just like that, we've upsized our pipe and everything's looking great. Now I'm going to keep the rest of them at 1 inch because I think that's fine. And let's go ahead and do the urinals. So we're going to use the same kind of techniques. So again, we're going to start from the last fixture. I might want to kind of hover into a good 3D view for the urinals so I can really see what I'm doing. Just like that. All right, that looks good. And then we'll go from the last fixture again. We're going to click and we're going to draw it off to this area right here. I'm going to draw it to right here. Now I need to make sure I align my pipe. Now I could just probably drag it, and you can see when I drag it, it also knows to make that connection automatically. And then I'm going to drag this piece into this one, just like that. And we've automatically made that drop. So I'm going to go ahead and get my section box back. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to say reset this, and then we're going to drag this out. Keep going, keep going. There we go. So we have this piece of pipe. Now again, you'll notice that this one was 1.5 inches. And so if I want to increase this main right here, I can just hold Control and I can add to my selection by clicking and then using a window selection. Now I have all that selected, and I might want to change the diameter to, I don't know, 1.5 inches, something like that. We can always change things later in Revit. So I'm going to go ahead and use my same techniques that I did before. I'm just going to use the Connect Into button and click my pipe, do it again, Connect Into, click my pipe. It's just very fast. I could do it in 3D, Connect Into, click my pipe, Connect Into, click my pipe. We'll do it the old-fashioned way a couple times. So we'll just go from this, we'll click, click. We can go from the main, oh, it's not working this time. Let's just go from here to here. Look at that. Now this last one didn't work because it wasn't at the right elevation. That's why it wasn't connecting. So we could do that, or let's say we want to drop it down first then over. So there's a lot of different ways we could model this. I don't really love the way this looks because it's a little just overkill. So let's go ahead and redo that. So I'm going to hit Control Z twice. And this time I'm going to draw it from this fixture first, just like this. And we're going to go right into this midpoint. Let's see if it snaps automatically. All right, it didn't work. So this might not work. Let's try this again. So let's go to this point right here. And so what we need to do is we need to kind of have enough space. We need to make sure we have enough space to go down and over. And so what we can do to test this out is we can use the Trim Extend, and we're going to click our where we want to go and click the pipe. And you'll notice that there's not enough space there to put the fittings, okay? So you're going to get this error a lot in Revit. So anytime Revit doesn't have enough room to make the connection, it's just not going to work. So what we have to do is we have to change the elevation of this flush valve. So remember when we made that section, so let's go back to the section. So I'm going to go back to this section view right here. And I'm just going to click on my flush valve, and let's go ahead and just lower it to about right there. Now let's try to make that work. So let's go back to our floor plan and let's zoom in. We're going to click the Trim Extend. We're going to click our pipe and click this pipe. And now you'll notice that I can in fact connect that. Now let's go back to the section view and let's see if we can raise this thing back up. So I'm going to raise it up to here, and look, we were able to make that connection and raise it back up, because sometimes Revit just can't initially make the connection work, but then when you connect it and then you re-raise up your stuff, sometimes you'll be able to make it work. So we were able to make that work by those techniques, and you're going to have to do that stuff a lot in Revit. So that's good practice. All right, for the last ones, we might want to connect our cold water to our lavatories. Now the lavatories are a little different. We should probably take a look at these lavatories too, because I think these are really cool products. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Zurn's website and show you guys what they're all about. So here I am at Zurn.com, and let's go to Finish Plumbing. And let's take a look at these hand washing systems. So architects love these things. Now what's nice about them is they're multiple basins in one fixture. Okay, so it's actually great for architects. It's great for us because we only have to specify one unit. And all of these have basically can be wall hung with carriers. And so if we click on this Surf hand washing system, you could take a look at it, but it's just really nice. It also comes with a cover down here, so you don't have to worry about purchasing pipe guards or anything. It's like an all-in-one system. It's just a really great product. So make sure you tell your architects about these awesome fixtures that Zurn has created. And another nice thing about it is Zurn has created Revit families for us. So we already have the Revit families. So here we are back in Revit, and you can see that we already have these basins with the faucets in our model because the architect already placed them and we copied them into our model. And so all we would have to do is kind of show the cold water and the hot water going down to these fixtures. Now there's no connectors. Well, there is a connector to these, but typically when we're in plumbing, we don't really need to connect to the faucet. We only need to provide the stub outs or the locations that the contractor is going to connect to at the wall. So I'm just going to provide stub outs to the wall basically for connection points. So we're going to do that. So let's go to the cold water right here, and then we're just going to drop this down. Now we want to drop the stub outs down to below the faucets or below the fixtures. So I'm going to go to draw pipe, and I'm going to go down to maybe 2 feet. Let's see what that looks like first. And we'll go to the very end here and maybe something like this. And let's see what it looks like going into the wall. Now I can't snap to the wall, unfortunately, so I'm just going to go to a point about right here and click escape, and then I'm just going to use my align tool. So we're going to align to this point, to the edge right here, and then let's take a look at that in 3D and see where we're at. And as you can see, we're still a little too high. I think we need to drop it down even lower, so let's maybe drop it down to 1 foot. So I'm going to click on 1 foot, and that looks much better. So that's going to be the connection point for, maybe we'll also use instant water heaters or tankless water heaters. So maybe like an electric water heater right below the fixture. That's going to supply hot water for all those lavatory faucets. So that'll be the connection point. So let's go ahead and put some more connection points on here. Typically the hot is on the left, the cold is on the right. So we're going to create another one of these. Now if you want to be consistent, what you can do is you can basically copy these pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and copy them, and I'm going to copy it from, let's say, this point to this point to this point, just like that. And then I can use my trim extend command. So I'm going to click on trim extend. Now anytime you have multiple trims that you need to make, you can use this button or this tool right here, which is the trim extend multiple elements. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to click on where I want to go, and then I'm going to click boom and boom. And now I can do it multiple times. So let's go ahead and go to the other side. So I'm going to start drawing some pipe by right clicking, create similar, and we'll go to a point about right here, and we're going to go into the wall so it won't let us snap. So we're just going to have to use the align command. We'll go to this point right here, and that looks pretty good. Let's rotate around to make sure that's looking good. Yep, we can kind of see it right there underneath our lavatory. That looks good. So let's create some more. So I'm going to copy, go from this point to this point, and this point, and this point. That looks great. And we got to use our trim extend again, so we can use this command. We'll click and we'll click. And we forgot one right here, so we'll use the single one. Click, click. And now we have our cold water supply stub outs to these lavatories. So the contractor will basically install these all the way to the wall, and then they're going to put a little shutoff valve under the lavatory. And then mixing valves and any of the water heaters they might be using, and all of the pipe guards. So we're going to also connect these to the sanitary system. So that's next. So let's start drawing some sanitary pipe, because we haven't done that yet. Now it's always a good idea at this point in the project to save it. So I'm going to go to File, Save As. So now that we have everything saved, let's go ahead and start drawing some sanitary piping. I'm going to start drawing the sanitary piping from this water service room. I'm going to start with a floor drain. So let's go and download a floor drain. So we're back at zurn.com, and I'm going to go to Drainage and Interceptors, and we're going to go to Floor Drains. We're going to go to Finish Floor Drains. And again, let's just click on one of the best sellers. Let's click on this one right here. And this floor drain is pretty cool, but not too fancy, but it has a lot of features about, how it can be leveled with the finished floor. So the contractor definitely likes that kind of stuff. So we're going to go to BIM, and we'll go ahead and download this floor drain. Now you'll notice it also comes with this text file. What that is a type catalog. So you're going to want to download both, and we're going to talk a little bit about type catalogs real quick. So go ahead and click on these and download them. Now once they're downloaded, we're going to go to Insert, Load Family, and we're going to go to our downloads. And we're going to click on this floor drain right here and click Open. Now, you'll notice that there are quite a bit of drains that we can potentially load into our project. That's why we downloaded the type catalog, because we don't really want every single drain. We want to tell Revit which ones we want to put into the project. So let's go ahead and select a few. I'm going to go ahead and select this 4-inch no-hub outlet and 1-inch no-hub. Maybe this one too. So I'm just going to also hold Control and select both of these. So I got the 4-inch up here, and I got the 2-inch down here. So I'm going to click OK. And now it's loaded both those drains into the project. So if I want to get to the drain, all I do is go to Systems, Plumbing Fixture, and you can see it's right here. Now I'm going to start with the 4-inch drain right here, and we're going to put that right in the center of our water service room. So I'm going to place it right here, just like that. Now we also might want to place some other drains, so I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. So we're going to click on plumbing fixture, and this time I only want to use the 2-inch drain, so we're going to click on this one. And we'll place one maybe in the middle of this area right here, so something like this. I wish this section wasn't here, so I'm going to move this a little bit right here. And then we could use our arrow keys to kind of nudge this into the center. Now if you really want to center this perfectly, which sometimes you might want to do, let's go to modify, and we're going to use this align dimension tool. And I'm going to basically align it with, I'm going to tab and click the outside of the wall here. And then again, I'm going to hit tab to click the outside of the wall here. And then we're going to click this midpoint right here. And then we're going to click, and then we can use this EQ button, and it will automatically use an equality dimension. So make sure that drain is right in the middle of that room. And once I do that, I can hit delete, and we can get rid of that dimension, and we can just hit unconstrain our drains. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this one, and we're going to right click. We're going to say create similar right here. And we'll put another one maybe on this side of it. Now it would be kind of cool if I just mirrored that. So let's do that. I'm going to click on this guy. I'm going to click this mirror pick axis, or let's draw the axis. So I'm going to click on that, and then let's draw it from this midpoint of this wall right here. Now we can't really click on the midpoint. So maybe we'll just do it to this point right here. And we're just going to draw this axis to here, and boom, it puts it right in the middle, or the same distance from here as to here. So that looks pretty cool. We also might want to put a drain over here. So I'm going to show you guys another technique that not everybody knows about. If you want to basically make a copy, but instead of using this button right here, if you hold Control and then you just drag, it will make a copy from that original element. Okay, so it's a really cool tool. So I'm going to put this floor drain kind of maybe something like this right here. And then I can use my arrow keys to kind of nudge it into place. Maybe something like that. I think that looks pretty good. All right, so I think I'm covered as far as drainage. So now we have to start drawing some sanitary piping. So to do that, all we'll do is let's go ahead and start from this drain right here, and we'll click the little, create pipe button. And the first thing we have to do is we have to make sure we're drawing on the correct system or the correct pipe type. So I'm going to select PVC, and it's a 4-inch pipe. I have to change the elevation because I want it pretty low under the slab. So I'm going to go to -2 feet. So I'm going to type in -2 here. And I also might want to slope down. So I'm going to slope down, and I'm going to slope it at 1/8 of an inch per foot. And we're just going to keep drawing off in this direction and click. Now our sanitary in our pretend building is going to be connecting to the utility in this direction. So I'm just going to drag it all the way across here to something like that. So this is called our building drain. Now before we connect these floor drains to this sanitary piping right here, we're going to have to model all the sanitary for the lavatories because we're going to use the lavatory sanitary and venting to vent the floor drains. So let's get started with this. The first thing I might want to do is I might want to select all of my lavatories and then use my section box. So I'm going to go up here and click on the selection box, and it will kind of create a section box around my lavatories for working. Let's move this down a little bit, and that's looking good. I'm going to hide my box by clicking the sunglasses and going to hide element. And then we'll kind of rotate this thing around, and we're going to start at this lavatory right here. So I'm going to start drawing piping down this way. So to draw piping, let's just click into our floor plan, and you can see we have these create pipe buttons right here. We can just click on one of those, and then we can just start drawing piping. Now if you draw piping right off of this, you're going to see that when you click, it's going to say no solution was found. That's because you can see here when we were creating this pipe, we didn't drop it down enough to be able to fit an elbow. So we need to be able to do that first. So I'm going to hit cancel there. And this time, let's go ahead and drop it down. So let's click on our pipe button, and let's drop it down to 1'6" by changing the elevation and then clicking into the view right here. And look, this time we dropped it down and it created a nice elbow. Now I want to create a P-trap right here. Now you'll notice over here in the drop down that there's no P-trap, so I can't just change this fitting to a P-trap. Also, if I search under my project browser for trap, there is no P-trap in this project, so we have to get one from Revit. So all we have to do is go up to Insert, Load Autodesk Family, and we can literally just search for P-traps right here. So I could go up here and just kind of search for trap and hit enter. And you can see all the families that have trap in the name presented themselves. So we're going to click on this trap P PVC and hit load. And now I have my P-trap into my model. Now, the only way to get to the P-trap is going to the project browser down here, or we could actually go to the systems, click on the little fittings button up here, and you can see my P-traps right here. But unfortunately, it's kind of hard to get this P-trap to really work. Like if I click here, it pops in the wrong direction. That's not great. Let's just undo that. So how do we get this P-trap in here? Well, here's a little trick for you guys. So if you go down to the browse and then type in trap, we can access our P-trap right here. I'm going to right click and we're going to go to edit. And we're going to actually edit this family. So here is the family editor right here. And we're going to change something. We're going to go up here to the family categories and parameters. And right now you can see that this P-trap is under part type. It's called a multi-port. Now, if I click the drop down, you can see these are all the different types of fittings that Revit allows. So we're going to change it from multi-type or multi-port to elbow and hit OK. And then we're going to load it back into the project. We're going to overwrite the existing version. And now when I click on my elbow, I should have a new elbow down here called Trap P. And so we can just click that button and look, it automatically creates a P-trap for us because basically we told it to act like an elbow. So that's how we did that. So this is looking great. Now, a lot of times when I see that I've done something that I can mirror, I will do it. So I'm going to go ahead and select everything that I want to mirror over. Right here, we've selected it. Now let's click into the floor plan right here. And we're going to go up to the mirror draw axis and I'm going to click on it. And I want to be able to mirror it from the midpoint of this chase wall, but I can't snap to anything, unfortunately. So I have to do something different. I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to go to annotate, detail line, and I'm going to just basically draw what we call a construction line, and that just allows me to get a midpoint here. I'll go ahead and select the previous. Well, I can't, but I can just select it right here. We'll click into this view, and then we'll go to mirror draw axis, and then we're going to click the midpoint of that line and then just drag up and click, and now we've essentially created another P-trap on the other side. So let's kind of zoom around. Now, anytime you want to orbit around something, if you select it first, it will orbit around that object. So that really helps when you're using this orbit command. So now we have these two P-traps going into the center like this. Now we need a pipe that's going straight up and down. So I'm going to show you guys a pretty cool trick. So I'm going to click into the floor plan view. And if you want to draw a pipe that's going straight up and down in a floor plan, there's a little trick you have to do. We're going to go up to Systems, Draw Pipe. And the first thing I have to do is I have to set my elevation. So let's start it at 0. And we're just going to click this midpoint right here because we want it right in the center of this chase. So we're going to click the midpoint here. And now we're just going to draw the pipe up to 10 foot and click Enter and then click Apply. And as you can see, there's a pipe up here. Now, if we zoom out, you're not going to be able to see it right now because our section box is hiding it. But if we click on our little sunglasses or glasses down here and reset it, we can kind of drag this out and hopefully reveal that straight up and down pipe we just drew. Look at that. So it's right here. So let's go ahead and move this thing into place. Now I'm going to move it right into the center of this piping right here. So I'm going to use the Align command. I'm going to go to Modify, Align. We'll click on the midpoint of this pipe right here, and then we'll click on our pipe up here. We want to make sure we select the mid of that. So I can't select it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it and then hold Shift and use my arrow keys. And let's see if we can use the Align command again. Let's try it. So we're going to go to the center of this pipe, and then now we can select the center of this pipe, and boom, we've essentially put it right in the middle of our pipe. Now I'm going to go ahead and change this to 2-inch because I want my common vent to be 2-inch. And that's looking good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Trim Extend command, this one right here, single element, and we're just going to click on our stack, and then we're going to click on the trap arm and click, and would you look at that, everything looks great. Now anytime you want to go from a single fitting to a double fitting, you can just go ahead and click this plus button. But before I do that, I have to load a double sanitary T into the project. So we're going to have to do the same thing we did last time. So we'll go up to Insert and Load Autodesk Family. And this time I'm going to look up double and then hit enter. And you'll notice there's a lot of stuff here. So I want to go ahead and search only pipe fittings. So instead of any category, I'm going to go down to pipe fittings. And now we're going to search double within pipe fittings. So I want a double sanitary reducing T, this one right here. So I'm going to click on that guy, and then we're going to load it into the project. And now it's loaded in. So now we need to basically, if you want to create a double from a single T, you can click this plus right here. But unfortunately, it looks like the double wasn't put into the routing preferences. So I'm going to hit cancel here. We're going to click on this piece of pipe. Now we have to update our routing preferences. So to do that, we're going to go to edit type here. And then we're going to update. We're going to hit edit under routing preferences. And under cross, you can see there's none. But we're going to change that. We're going to make it this T reducing double sanitary. We're going to click OK. Click OK. And now when we click on our T and click the plus button, you can see that now it turns into a double sanitary T. So that looks great. Now if we want to connect these two pieces right here, here's a little trick. We can just click on the fitting, select connect into, and click our piece of pipe. And would you look at that? Now we have everything connected up. Now this is what's called a common vent. And the reason we call it that is because it's basically this pipe right here is venting both of these fixtures. Okay, so it's a common vent. All right, so let's essentially just copy our common vents each time we have these lavatories back to back like this. So I'm gonna just go ahead and tab into all of my pipe here by clicking tab on the pipe multiple times. And we're just gonna make some copies here. So I'm gonna copy from this point. So I'm gonna click on my copy command, and maybe we'll click on this corner to this point. That looks pretty good. And let's just click on this corner, just like that. Now it's not lined up perfect, but that's not a big deal because we don't actually need to connect our fixture to our piping. We could do that, but in this case, we're just gonna get it close enough. Now these two lavatories, you're gonna see that are a little different in the fact that they're not really lined up. So we could do it a couple different ways. We could basically make the sanitary right behind one of them and then use a branch to connect to the other. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to kind of show you guys how I would do that. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to zoom around here so I can get a better look at these lavatories in the middle. And let's just change our selection box here. So I'm going to click. Here's a little trick for you guys. If you ever need to change your selection box, all you have to do is click on it in the view. And then if you go to a floor plan view, you can see that it's showing up. So if I click into my floor plan view, then I can actually drag my selection box to the point that I want it. So I want it to about right here. And then I want to move it up to a point about right there. And now I'm really zoomed in on these two lavatories. So it makes my modeling a little bit easier to see. So this is looking great. Now I can go ahead and hide this selection box just like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and start modeling this stuff. So the first thing I might want to do is I might want to tab into all this piping right here. And let's just make a copy. We'll copy it from this corner to this corner. And that's going to be the sanitary for this guy right here. So we got this one. This one's connected and everything. That looks good. But we want to move this one over this way so we can kind of connect into this guy. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all of this piece of pipe. So I'm going to click on this point and then hit tab and then delete all of this. And then if you want to go from a double to a single, you can click on it and then hit the minus button. And that will now create it to just be a single. So now we're going to connect to this lavatory right here. So I might as well just use some of the piping right here. So I'm going to hit the tab button. We're going to select all this piping. And I'm just going to hit the copy button. And we'll copy from this corner to this corner right here. Now I can move that a little closer. So if you want, you can use the align command. So we're going to modify align. And we can click on this to here. And now we've kind of moved that right closer. And then I want to continue drawing piping from here and then over. So I'm just going to right click on my pipe and hit draw pipe. And we'll just kind of draw it off to this direction. Now we're going to have to kind of mirror it or align it. So I'm just going to click on the align button. And we don't really have anything to align to, unfortunately, in the middle here. So we might have to use another technique. So again, we can use our little construction line technique by using a detail line, and we can click the middle point right here. I'm going to move this water piping a little over, just like that. Now we have this construction line, and I'm going to use it to align my piping. So I'm going to go to Modify, Align. We'll click on our line and then click the pipe. And now we have this automatically aligned here. Now you'll see that we can't just go ahead and connect to this fitting because this fitting doesn't work like that. So what we might need to do is we might need to drop this piping even more down here, and that way we can make a connection near the floor. So all we have to do is click on the pipe and then we'll just drop it. So instead of 1'6", maybe let's drop it to 1 foot. And then maybe we'll raise this one up a little bit. So let's raise this one up to, I don't know, 1'10", something like this. And then let's make that connection. So we can use our Trim Extend single element tool, this one right here. And then we'll click on the pipe we want to go to first, and then click on our branch, and look at that. Now these fittings right here are 2-inch. If we change those to 1.25 inches, they're going to make it look nice here, but then they're going to break our piping up here, and that looks kind of silly. So what we really want to use is we want to use a T that reduces on one of the ends. So again, let's go ahead and insert a new type of fitting. So we're going to load the fittings. So we're under pipe fittings, and this time I want to do a T reducing. So let's just type in T. Let's also type in reducing. So now we have some reducing T's here, and it needs to be a sanitary. So maybe we can type in sanitary. So let's just look down our list and hopefully we can find, oh yeah, we should have only typed in or clicked on PVC, drain waste vent. And now you can see that our list got a lot shorter. Here we go. We have this T reducing sanitary right here. And then we'll just load that into the project. And now when we click on this guy, we should, under the drop down, have a T reducing. Look at that. And that looks a lot better, guys. So let's click on this guy. Let's click on our T reducing sanitary, just like that. And look at that. So now we have these clean looking fittings. We can also bring this up a little bit. So maybe we'll bring it up to 1'4". And then we could bring this one down a couple inches, maybe 1'8", 1'8". Oop, I brought it down too much. So maybe 1'9". That looks pretty good, guys. Now you do want to make sure that you don't make your trap arm too long. So for 1.25 inches, we can't go over 5 feet. So if you do want to measure to make sure that you're not going over 5 feet, you can use the measure tool up here. So we're going to click, and then we're going to select chain because we want to measure the whole chain. So I'm going to go from the center of this pipe right here, and we're going to go over this way, over to this way. And you can see we're only going 3 feet total. And so that should be okay. So this will work. But a lot of times the plumbers won't even make this horizontal turn right here. They might just literally go right into this part right here. So I'll show you guys how to do that real quick. So if we just kind of click on this and delete it, anytime you want to get rid of a fitting, all you have to do is hit this little minus button. So we'll click that. And now we have this single one right here. Now let's delete this piping right here. So we'll just tab into it and then click delete. That looks great. Now I want to make a copy or a mirror copy of all of this stuff right here. So all I have to do is kind of tab into it, click, and then I'm going to click into my floor plan. And this time let's use the mirror pick axis because we have this little axis right here. We're going to click on this one. And you always want to make sure you have copy if you're making a copy. If you're not making a copy, make sure you deselect that. So I'm going to click it. And now it still has the piping that I copied and mirrored selected. So I'm going to move it. And we'll just move it up a little bit to a point right there. And then we'll finish it off by going to Modify, Align, and we'll align it to the midpoint of our lavatory, just like that. So I did all that to kind of just show you how to manipulate things in Revit. A lot of times you might draw something and model something and realize, oh, I don't want to do that. Fortunately, Revit makes it pretty easy to make changes, okay? So let's continue off on this project. Now we need to connect the sanitary for the lavatories to our main like we talked about earlier. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of my little selection box here. So if you want to get rid of the section box, you can go over to the properties and just uncheck it. And now we can see everything here. Now when you're drawing a main or a sloped piping from your main, you have to start from the main. So we're going to click on our sanitary pipe down here. I'm going to right click and say create similar. I'm going to change the diameter to 2 inches. Actually, let's go ahead and make this 3 inches for the branch right here. And I'm going to go ahead and slope up this time. We'll slope up at 1/8 of an inch per 12 inches. And then we need to make sure we check on inherent elevation, because that will make sure that the elevation that we start drawing piping is at the right elevation. Now what we need to do, and the reason why I'm drawing from the main first as well, is because as I hover into this, you can see Revit is snapping for me. Now it's using that line that we drew earlier as its reference to snap to you. So you can see how it's kind of like highlighting it right there. We'll click, and then we're sloping up this time. And we're going to slope all the way up to this point right here, and we'll click. Now that didn't work, and unfortunately Revit was thinking we wanted to connect into the top portion of that pipe. That's not really what we wanted to do. So let's try that again. Let me show you guys what I was talking about here. So I'm going to zoom in here, and we'll start drawing some piping. Right click, create similar. We're going to slope up. We're going to inherent elevation, and you can see how the little line gets blue when I hover into it. And we'll click. And then this time I'm just going to go ahead and click to a point that's about right here. And then we're going to use our trim extend command to kind of trim these together here. So I'm going to go up to trim extend right here, and we'll just trim this guy to this guy. And look at that, that looks great. And then we can use our trim extend this guy right here. Or since we have multiple trim extends, let's click on the multiple. We'll click on our pipe, our branch, and then we'll just keep clicking just like that. And that looks great. Now, this is actually not the correct fitting to use. We need to start using a combo fitting when we're connecting to mains and when we're connecting from vertical to horizontal. So let's go ahead and get a combo fitting. So we're going to go to Insert, Load Autodesk Family, and under PVC DWV, we're going to type in Combo, hit Enter, and nothing shows up. Let's just go ahead and look through here. There it is, combination. So we have to actually type in combination, and now it shows up. So we have two types. We have a single and a double. Well, let's might as well just load in both. So now we have our combo T's in here, and we can click on these and then click the drop down. And you can see we have this new Y combination. We're going to click, and that is a much better fitting to use. So you can see that it's more pronounced, and it allows the flow of the sanitary piping to go into the direction that it needs to go. So let's change all of these. I'm just going to hold Control and select all of them, and then we're just going to change all of these to combos, just like that. And that's looking great. Now we might want to also kind of change this. We could change this to like a 3-inch, just like that. Oh, it used the 4-inch. Whoops. Well, let me show you guys how to quickly change a pipe size. So remember, we want to select all of this right here. So we can select our first one, and then we're going to hold Tab, or we're going to click Tab as we hover, and then we're going to hold Control. And now we've selected all of it, and then we can just change the diameter to 3 inches right here. And would you look at that? Now we need to go ahead and change these to combos again because they're not in our routing preferences. So I'm going to change them to combos, and would you look at that? So that's looking very, very nice. Now these vents probably don't need to go up to the ceiling. They could probably be connected all here, and it really just depends on how you want to do things. And since this is a tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and show you how I would do it. So I'm going to right click, draw pipe, and I'm just going to start drawing off in this direction. And then I'm going to change how high all of these are by clicking all of them at once. And then we're going to go to the upper end top elevation. And let's instead make this to, I don't know, 4 feet. And you can see they all drop down. But unfortunately, when I did that, it drops the whole entire pipe. So I don't really want to do it like that. If I just click here and then I click into here you can see that it does make the change. So I have to do these one at a time, just like that. And then we can just drop this one down to 4 feet. Now, you technically do have to slope vent piping because you want to make sure that it still is draining. So, you know what, let's just go ahead and do it. I'm going to make sure that this is at 4 feet. So we might want to go ahead and redraw this whole piece. So I'm going to click, or we're just going to delete all that. We're going to drop this down to 4 feet as well. And then I'm going to right click here, draw pipe. And then I'm just going to go off into this direction right here. And it's kind of snapping. you can kind of see it snapping here, and we'll snap it. And then we'll just use our trim extend multiple right here, and we'll click on our vent manifold, and we're just going to kind of click on all these. Now, I don't typically slope my vent piping like this because it's just understood that it needs to be sloped slightly. But if you do want to like flip your fittings, you can always flip them. So in this case, we're kind of sloping this way, so it would make sense to kind of flip this. So I'm just going to click the little flip button. But unfortunately, it kind of breaks my piping like this. So I'm just going to hit Control Z. Now they do make vent tees, so we can download those as well. So if I go to my Insert tab up here and load family, load Autodesk family, let's type in vent, and we have this T reducing vent. We'll load it in. And then if we click here, you can see we have this T reducing vent. So we could kind of use these fittings instead. They look straight, and so it's kind of more conducive to how, you know, it should look. So that's really nice. So let's kind of do the same thing for our urinals over here. Let's use the same concepts as before. Now what we could do is we could kind of utilize all of our little stuff right here, but we don't need a P-trap for these urinals. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the fixture. Let's go ahead and zoom into the area we want to start with. So maybe we'll start with this guy right here, and we'll click. And we're just going to click on this 2-inch out. And this time I'm going to slope down, but I don't really need the slope for this little bit. So I'm going to remove the slope by clicking slope off. And we're just going to go into this point right here, maybe something like that. And then let's drop it down to 0 and hit apply. And now we have our piping right here. That looks great. Now we want to create a T. So I'm going to click the plus. And we have this little sanitary T. And then if we want to create more piping right here, we can right click, draw pipe, and we could draw it up to, I don't know, let's use 5 feet this time. And we're going to use that manifold technique we did last time. So let's just manifold it all the way over, maybe something like that. I think I went a little too far here, so I'm just going to back this off to here. That looks good. Now, one thing you'll notice is like my water's kind of interrupting my sanitary. I can always move that. So we just move it kind of closer to the wall, maybe something like this. And then we can kind of move our sanitary back a little bit, maybe back into the wall. So now I can see it a little better. And also, if you guys ever need to like see it a little better, you can click on these thin lines button, and it will kind of show it in a thicker line. Now we need to change the scale here to maybe like a 1/2 inch. And so our lines get a little smaller. Same with here. Maybe I'll change it to like a 1/2 inch and things look a little better. So let's continue, and let's just take this same concept and let's just copy it over. So I'm going to kind of select all of these pieces right here and click, and then we'll just go ahead and use the copy command again. So we'll go up here to copy. We'll just copy from like the midpoint of this urinal right here. Click, 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 and finally we're going to click. All right, so we have all these like urinals connected. Now they're actually not connected. So if you do want it to make sure it's connected to the fixture, you would have to connect these. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So if you ever want to check if a connection was made, you can go up to the Analyze tab and say Show Disconnects for pipe. Hit OK. And you can see that there's a disconnect right here. Now it looks like it's connected, but it's actually not. So if you want to make the connection, you can click on the fixture and say connect into and click on your pipe and see that little warning symbol goes away. So I'll show you again. So we go to click on the fixture, connect into, click the pipe, and the warning symbol goes away. So if you guys are using like, you know, fixture units in your fixtures and you want to kind of track all the DFUs, you would have to make sure these are connected. So I'll go ahead and connect them for you guys. So I'm going to connect all of these. You can also just drag it into the point right here and click. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. So let's use connect into. Now when I get to the last one, you can see that the connection point is a little different right here. So we need to actually just delete this piece, and then we'll just delete this T right here. And this time I'm going to actually click it and then go to connect into and click my main. And you can see we brought that fixture from that point of connection, which was down here, into our sanitary pipe right here. So now it's connected and everything's looking great. So let's go ahead and connect all of these fixtures up. So I'm going to go ahead and trim these together. So we'll go to Modify, Trim Extend. We'll click this to this, just like that. Now I might want to bring my vent pipe up a little bit. It only really has to be 6 inches over the flood rim of this, so it really depends on where the contractor wants to put this vent. I think we could even make it shorter, so if we make it to like 4 feet, that brings our vent piping a little further down, so that's kind of nice. And then the water piping goes on top of it. And then we'll use our trim extend multiple, and we'll just kind of trim all of these together, just like that. Just doing this very quickly, and that's looking pretty decent. We could change all of these little T's. So I'm going to select all of them by holding Control, and then we can change them to the T reducing vents so they look a little nicer. And now all of those urinals have been connected, and so we need to connect the main. So we're going to have 2 points of connection. Since our sanitary is kind of going through these two right here, we're going to have to connect these two to this and then these two to the other side. So let me show you what that looks like. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of create the floor plan, kind of clean it up a little bit. So the first thing I might want to do is I might want to click on this piece of pipe, and I don't necessarily want to see this when I'm modeling. So I'm going to go down to the little glasses and hide the element. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start drawing some piping from my main, just like last time. So we'll click on Create Pipe or Create Similar. We'll click on Inherent Elevation, and we're going to slope up again. And then again, I need to kind of snap into this so you can see it's snapping to that middle point right here. So I'm going to snap. I'm going to change my diameter to 2 inches, and we'll click. And actually, I might want to change it to 3. Let's go to 3 inches. And we're just going to kind of go up this direction just like that. Again, we want to change this to a combo, so I'll do that real quick. That looks pretty good. Now it changed my slope slightly. That's okay. If you want to make sure it's 1/8, all you have to do is go to slope right here and change it back to 1/8 and hit finish. And it should have changed back. But unfortunately, since my combos are not in my routing preferences, it keeps switching back. So let me show you how to fix that. If we click on the piece of piping and go to Edit Type and go to Routing Preferences, we can switch our junction type for our T's. Instead of sanitary T's, I want to use that combination fitting. So we'll click on OK, OK. And then again, I'm just going to change this to a combo fitting, just like that. And now we have the 1/8 inch slope, so that's looking pretty good. All right, so let's kind of look at this a little bit more. Now, all we have to do is use our trim extend command. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the little disconnect warnings. So we're going to go to Analyze up here, and we're going to show disconnects. We're going to turn that off, just like that. And then all I have to do, since these are already lined up, I can basically just trim it. So I'm going to go to Modify Trim Extend. We're going to go from this point to this point. And look at that. We automatically trimmed it. It's automatically at 1/8 inch. And now we can again use our trim extend tool. So I'm going to show you guys a little cool technique. Let's use our section. So let's go into the section. I'm going to move the section so it's only seeing the urinals. We're going to go to the view. And now we got our section view. And here's the trick I'm going to show. So we're going to go up to the trim extend multiple. I'm going to click on where we want to go. And then for these pipes right here, I'm just going to select all of them at the same time. And boom, look at that. Now that was sweet. Let's try that again because I want to really showcase that. So let's turn off our thin lines so we can really see this. And then we'll turn on our fine level of detail. And then let's make it shaded so it looks really cool. Let's try that again. So trim extend multiple. I'm going to select where I want to go. And then I'm going to select all of these pieces at once, and boom, all the connections get made. And look at that. We automatically, since we changed our routing preferences, it automatically is using the combo fittings. So that's looking great. All right, so now we got to kind of put these two and connect them in. And I bet you I'm going to have a little bit of trouble with this one right here. So let's go ahead, and the first thing I need to do is I need to change this to a double type combination fitting. So remember, all we have to do is click this plus, and it turned into a double T. That's not what I want. I want a double sanitary or a combo fitting. So I'm going to go to my drop down here, and we're going to change it to the double combo. And there you go, I got it. And now we're going to go back to our floor plan. And again, we need to kind of hide this little vent pipe so we can see below it. So I'm going to right click or click on this little glasses, hide element. And then what we need to do is we need to start drawing from this point right here. So I'm going to click on my double combination, right click, draw pipe, and we're going to start drawing with a 3-inch pipe. We could use a 2-inch just because we're at a really small run. You just got to make sure. You would technically need to change this to a 1/4 inch because it's the 2-inch pipe. And we'll just click to a point about right there. And then I would basically trim extend this. So I'm going to go to trim extend this to this. Make sure my sloping's correct. That looks good. Make sure my sloping's correct. That looks good. Now this point right here is a little tricky. So we're going to have to actually move where this piece goes down into this. So we might want to move it over here. So let's do that. So we're kind of going to use the same technique we did last time. We're just going to select all of our piping right here, just like that. And we're going to go to our floor plan and we're just going to move it over here so we can connect into that piece. So we're going to click the move button and we're just going to move it over maybe like right here. Let's go ahead and trim into this piece right here. So we're going to go to our trim extend single, click, click. Unfortunately, it didn't look like it made the connection, so that's not great. It's probably because it's not completely lined up correctly. And so sometimes when that happens, you might have to go back to like your select. So let's connect from this main right here up to this one. So I'm going to right click here, create similar, and I don't need the slope, so I can turn the slope off. And then as I zoom in, you can see it selects, and then I'll just click up, and that looks good. And let's see if we can connect these two together. Yeah, we can't. Unfortunately, these aren't in the exact spot. And it probably has to do because of the slope. So a lot of times what I'll end up doing is just kind of deleting everything and just kind of drawing everything over again. Let's see if we can connect these two together. Yep, we were able to do that. And then we can connect this to, or make this our vent T. And that's looking much better. And then we can kind of nudge this over. So I'm going to kind of nudge it over until it breaks. So I'm just using the right arrow. And once it breaks, you can just say cancel. And then you know that you're pretty much as close as you can be. So that looks good. And now we need to kind of start drawing the piping over to our urinal. So let's go back to our plumbing view. And then we can click on our urinal right here and start drawing some piping. I'm just going to draw it to over here right now. And then we're going to draw it over. And then we need to basically line it up to this piece right here. So unfortunately, Revit, when we hit the align tool, it doesn't, oh, it does. So we can click on this guy right here to the midpoint, and then we can click here. Look at that. And then hopefully we just use our trim extend single element, click, click, and would you look at that? We could change this to a sanitary T reducer. Let's see, T reducing, that looks good. And now we pretty much have everything plumbed up, looking very nicely. All right. So that was quite a bit of sanitary plumbing. Let's go ahead and reset all of our views. So I'm going to go down to the sunglasses or glasses and reset this view. And then I'm going to go here and maybe we could change this to shaded, maybe change it to architecture so you guys can kind of see all this stuff just like that. And remember, when we want to get rid of that wall, you know what? We could just get rid of the walls completely. Let me show you that. So let's go to view. Visibility graphics, we'll go down to walls and we'll just uncheck them. Hit OK. And look at that. Now we have a nice, really good looking plumbing system here. We also have these little partitions we could get rid of. So if you don't know what the category is in your link, go down to the links button, make sure you can select your link and then tab into it. And you can see the category for this is specialty equipment. We could just right click here and hide in view by the category, and specialty equipment gets removed. So now we have all of this plumbing. So there's a lot of, oh, we forgot our vent piping. So it doesn't really matter where you put the vent piping. Since I already have one over here, I'm probably going to put it at the end right here. So I'm just going to click this and click this little plus. I will change this to a T reducing vent. That's fine. We'll right click, draw a pipe, and then we'll draw it up to 10 feet. And whoa, that's the diameter. Whoops. Let's draw it up to 10 feet. And then we're going to either go straight up, or we could kind of connect all of these together and manifold them and then go up through the building. So let's do that. We'll do that. So I'm going off in this direction with this guy. So let's just continue going off this direction. And then maybe we'll put our vent near the sanitary. So I need to make the connection to these guys. Now here's a little trick for you guys. Anytime you have two pieces of pipe and you want to connect them together, you can use a command. So if I hold Control and click, you can see I have these routing solutions up here. If I click, it will kind of give me some routing solutions. So it's kind of fun. So we can kind of go through all of these and just keep clicking. And you can see the different solutions come up. There you go. That one looks pretty good. We'll click the finish button and look, it like automatically connected it. Now it got rid of this piece, but that's okay. So I'm just going to click this one, click the plus, and then we can kind of go over here. We'll change this to our T, and then we'll just keep drawing some piping off to this direction. And would you look at that? Remember, I promised you guys we were going to connect our our floor drains. So let's connect those. I'm going to show you how easy it is to do that. So to connect into these drains, all we do is click connect into, and we're going to click where we want to go, and boom, automatically connects it. Now you can see that it's not sloping. So if we need to slope it, we can click this little slope button, and we could just make sure the slope's like a 1/4 inch because this is a 2-inch drain line. So we're going to hit finish, and Revit's yelling at us. Now it's just saying that the slope that we selected can't be applied to this one because this one has a different slope. That's fine. All right, so this one's still sloping at 1/8 of an inch, and this one is sloping at 1/4 per 12 inches. So that's looking great. So to connect this one over here, we need to create a double fitting here. So let's click on it and click the plus, and it created a double sanitary T. That's not what we want. So we need to click the drop down and go to the double combination right here. That looks great. And let's start drawing some piping off from this little piece right here. So we'll draw pipe. Now this time we're going to slope up, and we're just going to continue off in this direction just like that. Now we might need to make sure that we move this into place here. So I'm going to use the align tool. We're going to align from the midpoint to the midpoint of this drain. We can kind of move the drain over if we want, maybe center it right there. And now we can just use our connect into button. So we're going to click on the drain, click connect into, and click our pipe. Make sure that the slope, oh, it got rid of the slope. So let's try to edit the slope. So we want it at 1/4 inch, click, and let's see if it doesn't look like it created that slope, unfortunately, guys. We might not be able to get a slope here. All right, so let's undo that. And we're just going to go ahead and not worry about the slope for this piece because it's really a small run, guys. So since the only slopes that matter are these mains, okay? So as long as your mains are okay, there's not going to be any coordination needed for this 2-inch pipe. So I would say don't worry too much about sloping things in Revit. It's going to really drive you crazy if you try to make it work. But anyway, you can do whatever you want, but I'm just telling you right now, sometimes you just don't need to slope everything. All right, so we tried. That's looking good so far. Now we need to connect these water closets. So let's do that. All right, so water closets are a little different in that they need a carrier to be able to like sit on, okay? They don't just sit on the wall, they sit on a carrier that's bolted to the floor. So that's where they get their, strength to hold up. So we need to, pop in some carriers. So let's go ahead and download some. So here we are back at zern.com, and let's go to finish plumbing. Actually, let's go to drainage and interceptors, carriers and fixture supports, water closet carriers. And here we have some water closets carriers. So I'm going to click on this bestseller right here, this 1201N. And let's just go ahead and download it. We'll click on BIM resource. Now we have a left hand and a right hand. I'm going to go ahead and download both. I'm going to also download the left. Now we're back in Revit. We're going to go up to insert, load family. And we're going to select both these carriers, hit open. And now they're in the project. So let's go ahead and place them in the chase. Now I don't want to see any of the cold water piping. I'm just going to go ahead and use a filter to get rid of it. So we're going to go to visibility graphics by view, filters, add. And luckily Revit already has these. So I'm going to click on domestic cold water here. And we're just going to get rid of the visibility of it. And now it's gone. Let's do the same thing up here in our 3D view. We're going to go to visibility graphics, filters, add, domestic cold water, and remove the visibility. And now we can see everything except the domestic cold water. So to add the carrier, we're going to go up to plumbing fixture, and we're going to just place this thing. Now we want to place it on the work plane. And so then we'll just line it up right here. It's going to go up to a point about right there, and we'll just click. Now let's just take a look at this in 3D, and let's just investigate it. Now you'll notice that it's not perfectly lined up, which is honestly totally fine. But if you want to go ahead and be perfect, we could probably move this down a little bit. So we'd have to kind of figure out how high this is off the ground, this toilet. So let's go ahead and use a section view. So I'm going to click on my little section up here, and we'll just go right there, kind of drag this over. Let's go to this view. And then what we need to do is we need to find out how high this toilet is. So I'm going to change this to a shaded, just like that. And we'll just kind of use an aligned dimension. And you can see this is the outlet right here. It's clicking, and we'll click. So 5 1/4. So let's just change the height of this to 5 1/4. So you can see that Zern has created some parameter values for us to use. So rough in height. So we're going to use 5 1/4. So 5.125, enter. Oops, that's 5 feet. So 5.125 inches. And we got 5 1/8. I think that's what I said. Yeah, 5 1/8. And look at that. It's perfectly aligned now. So now if you want to go ahead and like connect this, you can. But a lot of times I'm probably just going to go to modify and align it and make sure I align the fixture to this little outlet, just like this. So now we got our closet carrier connected, and this looks really nice. I love the way this carrier looks. It was obviously modeled in Revit, and all of the geometry is native to Revit, so it's going to work really well. And then look at this, they already have the connectors for us to use. So we have a nice 4-inch sanitary, and we have a 2-inch vent outlet. So everything is looking nice. Zern, you did a great job. All right, so let's continue on. Now remember, we have all of these toilets, and now that we set the height correctly for this carrier, we can go ahead and just copy this along. Now it's up to you whether you want to slope this piping, but usually for carriers, I'm not going to really slope the piping. If you're going to do an as-built that's like LOD 500 for the contractor, then you might want to. So in our floor plan, let's just go to the copy command, and we're just going to go ahead and copy all of these over just like this, just using the copy command and clicking. Now, one thing you might notice is these are all what we call left-hand carriers. So they're left-hand because the flow is coming from the left. So the left-hand carriers, but this one right here is the ADA or handicap one. And so I need to make that a right hand. So all I have to do is hit the drop down here, and we're going to make that this right hand. Now I'm going to actually select this no slope shown on barrel version, and I'm going to change all of these to the same. So I'm going to go just use my crossing selection or window selection, and we're just going to change these from a left hand no slope shown on barrel. That looks great because we don't need to slope these. It's up to you if you want to slope things in a chase wall, but like I said, for small runs of piping, I'm not going to really slope things. All right, so let's start drawing some piping. Now before we do that, we need to make sure that all of the slope parameter values are removed from these. So you can see down here, barrel slope, let's just change that to 0. And that way the barrel's not sloping at all. Let's do the same thing for this one right here. Let's make sure the barrel slope is 0. That looks good. And now we just start connecting our piping. So I'm going to click on one of the carriers, click the draw pipe button, and click. You can see it made that piping. We just need to make sure it's PVC, sanitary. That looks great. Let's go ahead and connect another. Click, 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 and let's do it one more time here. Now we're going to go off this direction for this one, so we're just going to click and click. And what I want to do is I want to kind of drop the sanitary in the floor between these last two fixtures right here, because I'm going to put a wall clean out right here so we can access the piping and clean this whole system out. All right, so maybe we'll go here and we'll just drop this down. So we'll draw a pipe. Now I'm going to drop it down. Remember when I told you that when we drop pipe down, we actually want to start from our main when we're doing sloped piping. So I have to go from my main. I'm going to right click, create similar, and we're going to slope up. We're going to slope it at 1/8 of an inch, and we're going to click, and you see how it kind of highlights. We'll click, we're sloping up, and we're just going to go up to a point right here. Revit's going to yell at us. So let's try that again. We'll click and let's just not connect it. Okay, so we're having some issues. So I think what's going on is we need to make sure we say inherent elevation and inherent size. So let's try now. Let's see if it works. Look at that. So these are the little tricks that you have to overcome when you're dealing with Revit, but now we got it and we got our slope. That's looking good. Now it's not a perfect 1/8 of an inch slope. If you want to change that, you can. You would just basically type in 1/8 of an inch per 12 inches and it will change it. But the only problem is it might, cause some issues. So I'm not even going to worry about it and just keep it the way it is. All right, so let's connect these two. So anytime you're connecting piping in this direction or like this, when there's a T, you can use your trim extend command from a floor plan and we can just connect those together and you can see that connection gets made automatically. And then I'm just going to go ahead and continue drawing piping up. Now we're using this giant combo fitting, which is a little overkill. We can actually use a sanitary T. So let's select the T sanitary just like that. And then I want to make this a double. So it's not giving me the option to make a double here. So I'm going to start drawing piping up. We'll just draw it up to 10 feet and hit apply. And now once I had the other piece of pipe drawn, you can see I can click my double and then we can kind of connect this into this. So let's do that. Hopefully it works. Boom. And now we have that. So you'll notice that it's not exactly this one. I don't know. Maybe we would need to adjust this height right here. It looks like because it's not perfect. And it's because this was my ADA fixture. So it was a little higher. So what we could do is we could click on this piece of pipe and we can find out what its elevation is. We can copy this to the clipboard and then we can go ahead to here and let's see if we can change our rough-in height to the same elevation. And would you look at that? So now we have this kind of perfectly connected up. Now the fixture is not perfect on this carrier right now, but that's okay. Remember, we don't have to be exact all the time, guys. This gets the point across perfectly and it looks pretty dang good. All right, so now we have that. We could go ahead and throw a clean out up here if we wanted to. So let me show you how to do that. Let's go up to Systems, Pipe Fitting, and we're going to click on our drop down and go to our Sanitary T. Now I'm just going to kind of put it into this pipe right here and click. And then we can kind of change the directions. So I'm going to change it like this, and then I'm going to rotate it off this way. And then I'm just going to cap this right here. So I'm going to say cap open end right here. And look at that, I put a little plug on there. So basically now that if we put an access panel in our wall, we now have access to be able to clean out this whole sanitary line right here, which is really nice. Now it might also be a good idea to kind of be able to clean out the end of this whole line right here. So let's go to our floor plan and let's create a clean out over on this direction. So let's keep drawing some pipe, make sure we're sloping off now, and we'll go this way. I could probably make this a 3-inch pipe and we'll just go off to this direction. And this time we're going to actually go closer to the wall, and I'm going to put a little cap here just like that. And again, we're going to put an access panel right here. Well, we're going to put a little plate right there, and that way they can quickly get access to this and we can basically clean out this entire line. So that's looking great. Now we need to connect this little floor drain, so let's do that. Let's go ahead and run this around here and kind of pop up a vent somewhere here. So let's go with this 2-inch. We're going to drop it down. Now remember, we still have to go from our main because we're sloping. So I'm going to right click, create similar, and we're going to have to slope up at 1/8 of an inch. Maybe let's do 1/4 of an inch because we're using 2-inch pipe, just like that. Now we want to go kind of in a 45-degree angle here. Uh-oh, it looks like we can't make this. That's because our routing preferences still have that Y combination. Let's remove that. So let's go to Edit Type, and let's go to our routing preferences, and instead of the Y combination, I'm going to go back to what I was using in the beginning, which was that T sanitary. And then let's go ahead and create similar. We're going to make sure we inherit elevation, go to 2 inches, slope up, something like this, and let's try it now. Look at that. So we were able to make that, and let's go off in this direction. Oops. It's not letting me do it. Let me just go like this. That looks good. And then I'm going to continue drawing pipe. We're going to inherit elevation, slope up. Maybe we'll go over this direction and we'll go over here and to here. Now I might want to have to kind of modify this a little bit. Like I can move this up a little. So I'm just using my arrow keys just like that because I still want enough room to make this vent happen. And then I also want to bring this over. So I'm going to go to my align tool and we're going to align this to this just like that. So let's go ahead and connect the drain. We can do it a bunch of different ways. We can just use our connect into button and click on our piece of pipe. You're going to notice that there's some issues here. That's not great. Maybe we'll try it this way. We'll click on our pipe and then we'll kind of drag it into this piece. And you can see that that went ahead and worked. Now we need to change this to a P-trap. So let's do it by the drop down over here. And Revit is yelling at us. Unfortunately, it looks like this isn't working. Let's go ahead and try. I think what's going on is this slope is messing with that fitting. So sometimes, guys, you just have to remove the slope. There's a couple ways to remove the slope. We can click on slope and go to 0 up here and hit finish. Revit's saying that it can't do slope on that. That's fine. And then let's see if that worked. Let's go ahead and change it. And that worked fine. So there's no slope on this pipe, but again, there are slopes on these other ones. When you're making really short runs, it's not that big of an issue to sometimes remove the slope. But just remember that you're going to have these issues when you are using sloped piping. All right, so that's looking good. So we're going to put our vent back here so I can kind of click on this piece of pipe right here. Maybe we'll use a window selection and we could kind of move that over, something like this. And then we could kind of put our vent back here. Now we're going to also need to connect this drinking fountain to our floor drain. We could go ahead and move that all the way over here and use the vent from our drinking fountain as a vent for our floor drain. So I think that's kind of a cool option. So let's try that. So I'm going to go into the drinking fountain right here and we're just going to click on this 1¼ inch right here. And we're going to kind of go off into the wall, maybe to a point. Maybe we'll go to about right here. We need to make sure the sloped piping is off. So let's change that to off and we'll go off to this direction. And then we're going to go down. Remember, we have to, since we're sloping, we have to go from our piping below the ground first. So we're going to right click, create similar. We're going to slope up. And since we're using 2-inch piping, we have to use 1/4 inch per foot. We'll go like this and let's go like this. Now, I don't really love doing this 90-degree turn, so I might have been better off doing a 45-degree angle here. So we're going to trim that to that, and we'll hit delete. And I think that's a little better. We could also do the same thing here. Maybe we want to do a 45-degree angle. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this little piece, put that back. Remember, when you're deleting fittings, you actually want to just click on the fitting and click the minus button. That's going to help you out quite a bit. And then what we'll do is instead of going off straight up, we're going to go off at a 90-degree angle here, and it's going to create a T. So we're going to right click and create similar, and we're going to do it to there. And then I'm going to change this to my combo T, just like that. And then we're going to trim this to this. And look at that. That looks nice. Now I'm going to use this vent right here, and that's going to be essentially the vent for this combination drain waste vent system right here. All right, so make sure you check your local plumbing codes on what you're allowed to do for venting. Venting is one of the most challenging things to understand in plumbing. So it's really good to check with your codes and your senior plumbing designers for rules on how to vent. So we need to create the vent from this drinking fountain right here. So I'm going to click on this elbow and create a T. And then we'll just continue drawing piping up. We'll right click, draw pipe, and we'll go to 10 feet. And we'll just hit apply, and that's going to be our vent. Now we also need the vents from the carriers. So I'm going to show you guys a pretty cool technique that I use every now and then. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a piping system, and we're going to use that to automatically create our piping. So to create a piping system, we're just going to right click, and we're going to control on all of these closet carriers. And then we're going to go up here to piping system. And what I need to do is I need to select the correct connectors to use. So I'm going to select these little vent connectors, and then Revit automatically selects all the connectors for the vents. And then I'm going to click on Generate Layout. And you can see that Revit automatically puts this little layout here for me. And then I'm just going to click Finish. And look at that. It automatically created my vent piping. Now I might not need it at 9 feet, so maybe I'm going to put it at like 4 feet. And that looks really nice. Okay. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make sure it's teeing into this correctly. So I'm going to remove this piece right here. Maybe I'll split it. So I'm going to go into my view here, and we're going to use the split element button, and we're just going to split that, and we're going to drag this over and delete that. And then I'm just going to use my trim extend single element to trim that together. We could flip this fitting up if we want. And we want to use the sanitary T, or let's use our vent reducing. Look at that. That looks great. And then we want to make it a double. So I'm going to click the plus just like that. And then we're just going to connect it in. And would you look at that, guys? So now this is acting like the vent for our entire system. We might be able to also use this vent to connect into this drinking fountains vent. So let's do that. So let's continue off this way. So let's click on our elbow, click the plus, and we can change this to the vent T just like that. And then we can right click, create similar, go from this point and go over. Oops, it's not letting us. So maybe we'll do it from a floor plan this time. Right click, draw pipe, and then we'll click. It looks like there is a slope still going on, so I need to make sure I remove that slope before I start drawing piping. And let's see if it works this time. There we go. Need to make sure it's long enough. And then we'll go ahead and we'll just connect these using our trim extend. So I'm going to go ahead and click on trim extend, click this to this. Now there wasn't enough space, unfortunately. So a lot of times if there's not enough space in this situation, we might have to move the fixture over a little bit. So I'm going to do that. So I'm just going to kind of move it over, exaggerate it, just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and make that connection. Trim extend, this pipe to this pipe, just like that. And then now I'm going to try to move my fixture back up. So I'm just going to use the nudge command. So I'm just going to nudge it up with my arrow keys, just like that, until I get close enough that it breaks. There we go. Now that was pretty much close enough. I think that's okay, and everything's looking great. Now we could use the reducing T for this situation right here. It'll make it look a little cleaner. So I'm going to go ahead and select my T reducing, and then it reduces from 1.25 inches to that 2 inch, just like that. And now we're off to the races, guys. Now we've pretty much finished everything. So I'm going to go ahead and, oh, there's one more thing we have to finish. We have to connect this vent piping over here to this. And I think I'm going to make this the main pipe that goes up through the building. So I'm going to put that up to maybe like 20 feet, something like that. And then let's bring this one over. So let's click into this view and let's just drag it over. It'll snap. And then let's right click, draw pipe, make sure we don't have any slope on, and we'll draw it to a point right there. And then we'll just use our trim extend button right here, single element, and trim these together. And we'll change this to the vent, just like that. And would you look at that? We pretty much have the entire system modeled, at least the sanitary. Let's check the water system. So let's turn that back on. So I'm going to reset this, and then I'm going to go ahead to my visibility graphics up here, go to filters, and let's turn on the cold water and make sure we have everything modeled. Let's see what kind of pipe we're using here. 3/4 inch, 1.5 inches. We got a 2 inch pipe right here. I don't think I ever connected the drinking fountain's water supply, so let's do that. So let's click on this. Let's click on this little 3/8 pipe button right here to create some pipe. Now before we do it, we need to make sure we change our pipe type up here, because if we click, you're going to see that it's going to say, hey, Revit doesn't have a pipe size for that. So we need to make sure, because that's in our routing preferences, we didn't have a small piece of pipe for a PVC. So we're going to hit escape here, and we're going to undo that pipe tool all the way over here. And then we're going to click the 3/8 button. And then I'm going to change this to standard. And I'm just going to go ahead and use a 1/2 inch right here. And we'll click up just like that. And it's not showing up because remember we were filtering out our cold water. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this piping up to maybe like 10 feet. And then we'll just bring it off this direction. Now we can't see anything. So let's go ahead and change our visibility. So go up to visibility graphics, go to filters. Let's turn on our cold water so we can see it. There we go. And we might want to right click, draw some pipe into here, just like that. And that looks great. And so we probably are going to put an access panel or something depending on the type of ceiling. And we'll probably put our shutoff valve right here for our drinking fountain. Now, if you look in here, you would think, oh, why don't you just connect the piping right here to this, the piping that's supplying this flush valve. Now, you don't want to do that. You don't want to connect a drinking fountain to a flush valve supply line because the velocity of water is very high in that area, and it could cause some problems in the pressure fluctuations. And so I just wouldn't do that if I was you. Okay, so just bring this up to your main and you're good to go. All right, so we're about done, guys. I think we've modeled this complete plumbing system. Now, for the last part, I'm just going to show you how to quickly add some plumbing fixture tags and some pipe sizings. And we're going to make some isometric drawings real quick so we can put all of this stuff on a floor, put all of this stuff on a document and a floor plan and an isometric riser diagram. And that way we can present all of our information to the contractor so the contractor can build this plumbing system. All right, let's create some riser diagrams and floor plans. So the first thing I might want to do is get a new sheet. So I'm going to go to sheets over here. I'm going to right click and say new sheet. We'll just select this one. That's fine. And we have our sheet. And then we need to drag our views into the sheet. So we go to plumbing, floor plans. I believe this is 1-plumbing. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this view in. And then we're going to click. And as you can see, it's a way too big. So we need to resize this view. So I'm going to go ahead and double click into the view on the sheet. And we're going to use some crop regions. So I'm going to go to crop view and I'm going to say crop region visible. And then I'm going to change the crop region. But before I do that, I want to get rid of these little reference planes right here. So we got to go up to view, visibility graphics, and we'll go to annotation categories, reference planes, and get rid of them. All right, that looks better. And let's change the scale of this first. And I'm going to change this to 1/4 inch equals a foot, just like that. That looks good. And now I can kind of move this view. So if I right click and say deactivate the view, I can kind of like move it into position once I click on it. And I can also use my arrow keys. That helps. That looks good right there. Now I want to get rid of these crop region boxes right here. I'm going to actually move them closer to my building, just like this. Maybe I want to move them all the way down here, all the way over, and all the way over. Kind of zooming in on our plumbing system, just like that. That looks pretty good. Now I don't want the crop region to show, so I'm going to go over here to the left, and I'm going to deselect crop region visible, and that's looking great. I also don't want my sections to show, so I'm going to right click and say hide in view by the category, and so all the sections get removed, and this is looking pretty good so far. Now I'm going to right click and make sure I deactivate my view. That looks pretty good. We have our floor plan here, and then I'm going to put the riser diagrams up here, I think. So this is the first one to kind of put on the sheet. We can kind of orient it any way we want. I think something like this looks good. So we'll go to a point like this. And then what we need to do is we need to add this view to the sheet. So we're going to go over here to the project browser. And I might need to first click into architectural and plumbing 3D views. So this view is actually living down here under architectural. And that's because, remember, we changed the building type or the view type to architectural. So if we change the discipline up here back to plumbing, you can see that my view goes down under plumbing now. And it still looks the same, so that looks fine. So now that it's down here, I can rename it. So let's go ahead and rename this view. And let's call it Water Isometric. Hit enter. And now we have our water isometric view. Now you'll notice this has both the sanitary and the water in it. So we need to remove the different systems based on what we're trying to show. So for the first one, I'm only going to show the water. So before I do that though, I'm going to make a duplicate of this. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to say duplicate view, just like this. And now I have two of the same views oriented in the same direction. I'm going to change this one. I'm going to rename it Sanitary Isometric. And so I'm going to go to my water first, and let's add the water to the sheet and click. And you'll notice that it's pretty dang big. So I'm going to double click into the view. We'll change the scale. Let's do it to 1/4 again. I think that's going to look okay. And then we'll deactivate it again, just like that. And then we'll move our view into position, something like this. Then I'm going to kind of move the little titles. I'm going to move this one by using my arrow keys. Oops. I'm going to click that, and then I'm going to click down here, move this over, something like this. And then I can kind of click on the title here and move this down if I need to, something like that. Now I need to move the title of this one. It got moved way over here, so I'm going to click on it, and we're going to move it into position. And maybe we want to move this view up a little, so I'm just going to kind of nudge it up. And then we'll move this title by clicking on it and move it back down. And that's looking pretty good. Now I might want to rename this like plumbing floor plan. So I'm going to actually click into the title right here. And we can also rename it right here. Call it plumbing floor plan. And we have the scale right there. And then we have this water isometric view. We could also move this one up a little bit because it's a little too close down here. That looks pretty good. So we have our water isometric. So remember, we want to get rid of the sanitary in this view. So I'm going to double click into it. And we're going to go up to view. Visibility graphics, we're going to use a filter, we're going to add a sanitary filter, and we're going to say, I don't want to see any sanitary piping. So we're just going to remove it. Now you're going to notice that not all of the sanitary and vent piping got removed. There's still this vent piping over here. So let's click on this vent piping right here, and let's take a look at the system type. So you can see the system type is vent. Now we put all of our other vent piping on the sanitary system, okay? And so this one happens to be on the vent system. So we need to make sure to turn that off as well. So I'm going to go up to visibility graphics, filters. We're going to add another system called vent, and we're going to turn that one off as well. And now all of our sanitary and vent piping have been removed from this view. Now you'll notice that we still have all of our fixtures and we still have our floor drains. So we might want to also remove the floor drains. So there's a couple different ways we can do that. Now the first way I'm going to show you is the way you shouldn't do it. Don't do this, okay? But I'm going to show you how to do it just in case you're in a bind. If you need to hide things in a view, you can go ahead and just click on them and right click and say hide in view by an element. And that will just hide the element that you clicked on. So I'm going to Control Z that. Now you can also hide in view by the category. So if I right click and hide in view by category, you can see that it's going to hide the entire category. Since floor drains are plumbing fixtures, it hides every single plumbing fixture. So you might not want to do that. So I'm pretty sure you don't want to do that. But here's the best way to do it. Let's use a filter. So we're going to go to View, Visibility Graphics. We're going to go to Filters, and we're going to create our own filter this time. And we're going to basically create a brand new filter. So I'm going to click on this New Filter button right here. And we're going to call it Floor Drains. And click OK. And now we're going to go to Plumbing Fixtures, and we're going to click it, and we're going to hide anything that has the name, family name, containing drain. We'll click OK, and we'll click OK. Now we have to add the filter first, so let's go to Floor Drains, and then we're going to say, I don't want to see it, and click OK. And now all of the families that had the name drain in them are getting hidden. So that's a way that you can hide specific types of plumbing fixtures based on the type of name or any of the parameters that are associated with that plumbing fixture family. So this is looking great. Now I might also want to kind of turn off the colors of my plumbing fixtures. And so I want all the plumbing fixtures to kind of be the same color. I want them to all be black. I don't want them to be green because they're on the sanitary system. So we're going to go back to Visibility Graphics. We're going to go to Filters, and I'm going to create another filter. We're going to go to New, and this one's going to be called Plumbing Fixtures. We're going to click OK, and we're going to select Plumbing Fixtures down here, and I'm going to click, and then for this, I'm just going to leave it at none. So it's going to select all of the plumbing fixtures in the view, click OK, and then what I can do is I can add the filter here, Plumbing Fixtures, and then I can use an override to override the color to black. Click OK, click OK, click OK. And now all of my plumbing fixtures are black, and that's exactly what I want. So now I have this really nice water isometric view. So I might want to throw some tags on this. So first I'm going to go ahead and tag all of my plumbing fixtures. So I'm going to go to Annotate, Tag All. And first it's saying we have to lock the view. So I'm going to go ahead and lock the view. So we'll go down here to Unlocked, and we're going to save orientation and lock view. And now that we have it locked, we can go to Tag All. We're going to go to Plumbing Fixture Tags. I'm going to select the tag I want, which is this Plumbing Fixture Tag Standard, and click OK. And it went ahead and tagged everything, but you can see there's question marks. And that's because Revit doesn't know what these fixtures are. We have to basically assign a label. or assign a type mark. So what we can do is we can just click into the tag and we can say, start naming them. So I'm going to name this one Urinal 1 because it's going to be the normal urinal. And that looks great. Now I want to change this one to a urinal type 2 because that's going to be my ADA type. So all I have to do is click on it, click on edit type, and I'm going to duplicate this one, click OK, and then we're going to change the type mark down here to UR-2 and click OK. And now we have a new type, urinal 2. Now I don't need these tags for the flush valves because I've already tagged the fixture. So we can just go ahead and get rid of these tags. So I can just kind of click on all of them. I'll do it really quick. And now that I have all of the flush valve tags selected, I can kind of delete them. Or if you really want to, you could label them as well. So I can kind of move them off to the side and maybe we label them FW or something, or FV for flush valve. And that'll be a flush valve type 2 because I'm going to use a different type of flush valve for my water closets. So I'm just going to select all of these and maybe let's move into a little further down just like this, and that looks pretty good. So now we've kind of labeled our flush valve and we've also labeled our urinals. Now I want to also select all of my tags for my urinals and move those down. So I can do that by selecting all of them. And once you have them all selected, you can use your arrow keys and kind of nudge them into the right spot. Maybe something like this looks good, and that's looking great. Now, if you want like to underline your tags, you could go into the tag and change them. So you can go to Edit Family, and I'm into the tag family right here, and maybe I want to add an underline. So I'm going to go to the text and click Edit, and then we're going to use the underline for this type, and then we're going to load it back into the project, override the existing, and then if we go back to our sheet, and now they're all underlined. So that's looking great. Now we also need to assign the tags for these. So let's click into one of these lavatories, and this is going to be our lav-1. So I'll just do L1. Now this one over here, it's a little tricky. So I actually tagged the lavatory faucets and the basin. So we have to be careful because this is the lavatory faucet. So the basin right here, I'm going to click into it and make that L-3 and hit yes. And that's the third L-3. And then we have two L-2s. So hopefully if I click into this tag, it'll be L-2. We'll call that one that. And it should automatically update this one to L-2 as well because they're the same types. So that's looking good. Now I'm noticing that I'm doing all this work over here, and look at this. It's also being updated over here. And that's because, remember, this is the view that was on the sheet, and this is actually the view, that view as well. So it's a duplicate. So I don't really need to have this open right now. I'm just going to have one single screen open while I'm doing this so I can really see what's going on. So this is looking good. And now I'll go ahead and label these like lavatories. So maybe I call this LF for lavatory faucet. And there's only one type, so I'm just going to call it, yeah, actually we'll make it LF1. So even if you make a mistake, you can always go back and change it to LF1. That looks good. And what we'll do is we'll move some of these tags over. So I'm going to move these two together, make sure they're in the same spot, something like this. And then let's move these L2s at the same time. So I'm just holding shift as I'm using my arrow keys, and we'll kind of just put them right there. And then we have these LF1s. Now, maybe we don't want to tag every single one. So here's a little technique that I'll use a lot is I'll just basically move this over. And let's add a leader. And we want to add a leader with an arrow. So I'm going to go to Edit Type. And we have to assign what kind of arrow. So I'm going to use this arrow filled 15. That looks pretty decent. And so we'll do something like this. And then what I want to do is I want to just basically denote to the contractor that this is a typical faucet. Okay. So all I have to do is just use the Annotate tab and go to Text. And then we'll just start drawing some text. We're going to use 330 seconds. And I'm just going to say typical, just like that, and click. And then I'm just going to move this so that it's kind of lined up perfectly, and that looks great. Now I don't need these LF-1s on every single faucet because it's just assumed that these are going to be our typical lavatory faucets, just like that. So this is looking great. All right, so let's continue to tag all of our plumbing fixtures. Let's tag these. So these are going to be called water closet -1. So WC-1 and click. It's going to change them all. And then we need to again duplicate this type. So I'm going to go to edit type. We're going to make a duplicate, hit OK, and we're just going to change the type mark down here to WC-2 and click OK. And now that I have all of these, I'm going to select all of them just like this, and then we're going to kind of move them over into a spot that kind of makes them look nice and pretty. Something like that looks good. And then I have these flush valves, so I'm going to name those FV-1 just like that. And now we have flush valve 1 and we have flush valve 2. So I'm going to select all of these tags just like this, and then we're going to move those into a spot that makes sense. We could also use the typical process for up here, but I'm not going to do it. So those are right there. Or we could also just make all of these leader type tags. So let's click on all of them. Let's click up on leader, and then let's move them at the same time. And you're going to notice they kind of all move into the same spot, but that's not looking great. I don't love the way that looks. So here's another trick for you guys. Since we want all of these tags to look the same, this is what we do. I'm going to delete all of these tags right here, and I'm going to move this tag into a position that I want. So let's say that I want this one to look like kind of like this. Now, if you want to be able to point to the flush valve, you have to go over here to free end, and then it'll give you the option to kind of point to this fixture. Now I can click on this tag and hold Control, and you can see it will kind of make a copy in the exact same orientation as my other tag. Now, unfortunately, this isn't going to work because I still need to move this tag like this, but that's how you would do that. Now, you got to be careful because this tag is actually still referencing this element right here. And the reason I know that is if I click on this tag and I go up here to say select host, you can see it will select this host, meaning that this tag is taking information to here. Even though it's pointing to this one, it's still referencing this information. So if I want to pick a new host, I go to pick new host here, and then I click on this one. And now it's referencing that one. Now, if I want to reference both of these with one tag, I can do that too. So let's kind of move this up maybe to something like this. Let's delete this one. And then let's click on this tag and add a host and click this one. And now you can see I have two tags or two arrows that are referencing two different elements. So that's just kind of cool. And then I can hold Control and use my same technique to kind of like drag these down, and maybe I do something like this. So this is kind of cool. Now there's a lot of different ways you can do this stuff, guys. I just wanted to show you as much as I can. And maybe I don't want to do two here. So if I want to remove this guy, I can just hit remove, and then I'm going to remove, oops. So I want to remove a host. So I'm just going to click remove, and then this guy is still referencing this other guy here. So I'm going to go to select host, and I need to remove this one. So it's kind of strange. I'm going to remove that host, and then I'm going to add a host. I'm going to add this one, but I don't really want to add it because I just want to keep it just like this. And then I want to take this one, and I'm going to hold Control, and I'm going to move this one down just like that. So it's all lined up perfectly. I think that looks pretty cool. Now you'll notice that I still have my carriers in this view. So let's go ahead and hide those carriers the same way we hid our floor drains. So we're going to go up to View, Visibility Graphics, Filters, and let's add a brand new filter. We're going to use the same concept as the floor drain. So I can go ahead and make a copy of floor drains, and then I'm just going to change it from drain, and I'm going to type in carrier and click OK. And then I need to change the name of that because I don't want it to be floor drains. I'm going to change it to, hit OK and click OK. And then we're just going to add it, add the carriers, and we're just going to remove them. Hit apply, and nothing happens. So we need to make sure that this family name actually contains carrier, and it doesn't. As you can see, it says fixture support. So maybe I want to actually use support in the name, and that way it will hide it. So I'm going to go back to my visibility graphics, go to filters, and then we'll click on carriers and click edit. And instead of that, I'm going to click on, or I'm going to type in support. So anything that has the word support in it should be hidden. I'm going to click on OK. And now you can see my carriers have been hidden from the view. All right, this is looking really good, guys. I got to go ahead and tag this water fountain. Now look how nice that water fountain is. That is a beautiful water fountain. And I don't think I talked about this yet. This is a great product from LK, a branch of Zern's company. So I went to lk.com because I wanted to show you how nice their website is as well. And you can see the product right here that the cover comes right off. So maintenance can be done by switching this filter out very easily. So that's kind of cool. And I just love how they've laid out all the specification sheets and installation instructions. And obviously you can get the Vim files and download these families for free at their website. So you just click here and download them. So another great product from the Zern team. So this is looking great. So I'm just going to move this tag over just right there. And look at that. That looks pretty nice. Now I need to tag this RPZ right here. So I'm going to go to the annotate, tag by category this time. And we're going to click on this. And you're going to see there's no pipe accessory tags loaded into this project. That's okay. We can create one. So let's go ahead and say no. And let's open up this tag right here. Let's go to edit family. And you can see that this is our plumbing fixture tag, but we can change any kind of tag in Revit. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, Family, and I'm going to name it Piping Accessory Tag and hit Save. And now all I'm going to do is go up here and we're going to create a pipe accessory tag. So we're just going to click here, and now Revit knows, or this family knows, that it's going to pick up the pipe accessory tags in properties. So I'm going to click on OK. And we're going to load it into the project. And now we got this pipe accessory tag that we can use on all of our stuff. So I'm going to go back to the view right here. And I don't want to use this box type, but first I have to tag it. I'm going to click and maybe click. Now I don't want the box one, so I'm going to go here to the drop down and use the standard one. And then we're going to get rid of the leader. And right now it's not labeled, so I'm going to go ahead and update the type mark to RPZ-1. Hit enter and hit yes. Now, if you guys want all of these tags and all this stuff, I'll have it at mepguy.com. Check the link in the description and it'll get you access to be able to mess around with this model and all of these fixtures. And it's also a great way to pick up all of these tags that I've created and all the fittings. So make sure you check out the link in the description. Okay. So the last thing we need to do is we need to tag all of the pipe sizes. So let's do that. I'm going to go to annotate, tag by category, and then you can see as we hover into these pipes, we can just tag them. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to use a leader. I'm just going to tag right into the pipe just like this. We can kind of tag it all over the place just like this. Or what we can do is we can do this automatically. So I'm just going to tag the mains. That's looking good. Tag this, tag this, tag this, and then tag this. Now I'm going to change the size of this pipe because I want this to be at least a 1/2 inch. So we'll just change this to a 1/2 inch. Cancel. I think we need to move this out a little bit. So let's go back to our floor plan, and we need to move this piece of pipe out, I think. So I'm going to hit tab here and select all of it. And then we're going to change this to 1/2 inch. It looks like it can't make that connection right here. So yeah, we have to exaggerate that a little bit. So maybe we go like this, and then let's hit tab again and change this pipe size to 1/2 inch. Oops, there we go. And you'll see that this is looking silly. So I'm just going to delete this guy right here. And then we're just going to bring this piece over here by using the align command. Now I'm not going to actually make the connection because unfortunately Revit wants to put that increaser. So I'm just going to kind of move it right next to the fixture. And then I can kind of move my piping over, and that's looking great. So let's go back to our sheet, and now we have our 1/2 inch pipe. What's so nice about Revit is when you make updates in 3D views, they update in the other view. So just a really nice stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and create a tag here. So I'm going to click on this one and right click, create similar, and we'll tag that. I might need to tag the pipes under here and up on here. So there might be a couple different ways to do that. Maybe I'll select all of the pipes that I want to tag over here, just like this. And then we'll go up to annotate, tag all. And this time I'm going to check the only selected objects in current view. So I only want to tag the things that I've selected. I'm going to add a leader, and I'm going to use the pipe size tag and click OK. Oh, I have to click pipe tags, click OK. And then I got my little leaders right here. I'm just going to select all of these just like this. And then I'm just going to move these over maybe to something like this. And then I'm just going to move this one over a little bit like that. I think that looks okay. We could also maybe tag these, but I can't really tag these in this view because these lavatories are in the way. So let's kind of talk about some graphics stuff. So let's zoom out a little bit and let's talk about how we might be able to show the water pipes in this area. Now, I want these tags to still show up. So unfortunately, we can't just hide this because when we go to hide in view by elements, we lose the tag. Now, we don't want to lose our tags. We want the tags to still show up. So I'm going to hit Control Z. And what we might have to do is we might have to just create a duplicate of this view to just show that piping. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So it's really easy. All I have to do is right click and duplicate this view just like this. And we're going to now take this area. So I'm just going to select all of this stuff and we're going to use our selection box up here and click. And now I'm just going to go ahead and hide the plumbing fixtures. And so we could literally just turn them off in this view. So I'm going to go to Visibility Graphics, Plumbing Fixtures, and just uncheck it. And now they're gone. And then I could just go ahead and tag all of this piping. So I'm just going to use the tag all command. So I'm going to go to Annotate, Tag All, Pipe Tags, hit OK. And that looks okay. That doesn't look good. So what we have to do is we have to change the scale. So I'm going to change it to maybe 1/2 inch. And then that looks okay-ish, but we could make it even larger. Maybe something like that. That looks okay. So now let's go back to our floor, our sheet, and then we're just going to add that view that we just created, which was the copy to the sheet. And maybe we would put it up here, just like that. Now, I don't really need this, but I could put a title right there, and we're just going to change the length of this. And we're going to call this Lavatory Water Piping. And so now you can see we have all of the sizes to our lavatories that we can't really see down here. Now I want to also remove this section box, so I'm going to click on it and hide it by the category, and that looks good. Now I also might want to make a reference that the piping is shown here. So what you can do is you can use a simple text box. So we're going to go to text, and then I'm just going to go ahead and point to this piping below. And we'll click to there, and we'll just make a little statement like this. And I'm just going to change the arrow type just like that. And now we've made the little statement saying, hey, if you want the sizes to all this, you can look up here. So that's kind of how I do things. In Revit, it's pretty easy because once we make changes here, we can easily change them everywhere. So having more views is not an issue in Revit, okay? So don't be afraid to create as many views as you think is necessary. So let's go ahead and finish this off with creating our sanitary isometric. So let's go back to our sanitary isometric view right here. And we're essentially just going to use the same kind of filters. So we're going to go up to View, Visibility Graphics, and we're going to add some filters. We're going to turn off the cold water and hit Apply. And we're going to add some of those filters that we added before. So we're going to use the plumbing fixture filter to turn all the plumbing fixtures to black, just like this. And that looks great. We're going to click OK here. Now this time when I do the tag all, I don't want to tag any of the flush valves. So I'm going to go ahead and try to be more strategic with what I select. So the best way to do this is to kind of open up a 3D view. So I'm going to open up a brand new 3D view, or I can just duplicate this one. So I'm going to duplicate this view just like this. And then I'm going to unlock it because I don't need it locked. So this is good. And then I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to kind of zoom in on areas and then use my selection box up here. And we're just going to kind of zoom in on this area. And then I'm going to use the view cube up here and click the right view. And then I'm just going to select all of the plumbing fixtures with a window or crossing selection like this, and then filter them and check none and only select the plumbing fixtures, just like that. Now I'm going to go back to my sanitary isometric and I'm going to click on Annotate, Tag All. We're going to lock it first, and then I'm going to right click and say Select Previous. I'm going to go to Annotate, Tag All, and we're going to select Plumbing Fixture Tags. We're going to use the standard one and click OK. And now I can go ahead and select all of these plumbing fixtures right here, and then I'm going to filter them by the tags only. And then I can use my arrow keys to kind of nudge the tags into the right spot. I like the way that looks. And maybe I'll move this one down a little bit to here, That looks pretty decent. So far, so good. Now I kind of am going to hover into here and make sure I tag this correctly. So this is going to be my floor drain 2. And we'll just move this up here. And then this one down here is going to be my floor drain 1. So FD-1. And we'll move that up. All right, so let's zoom out and let's go ahead and tag these lavatories. Now there's not a ton of lavatories, so I'm going to go ahead and just use a technique. I'm going to go to annotate, tag by category this time. And we're just going to kind of tag these. Now you'll notice it's tagging it with the box. I don't want that. So the better option is actually just to go to a tag that you want and right click and say create similar. And then it'll just create the tag that I want, which is nice. So I'm just tagging all of those. Then if I want to move them, I can select them all at the same time. And then I can move them all at once to something like this. And then maybe I want to move these L2s maybe out here. And I just like to select both of them so it's a consistent move and it looks nice. And again, we can't really see the piping behind this because of these fixtures are getting in the way. So we could use the same technique we did above. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's just make a copy of this view. So I'm just going to go over here and we're going to go to views, plumbing, and we have our isometric copy right here, but unfortunately we moved that one. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete that one completely because we don't really need it anymore. We're going to make a duplicate of this. So we're going to duplicate this and now it's in the right orientation. The view is locked so we know we're good. And then again, we're just going to select all of the stuff we want to kind of hover into. So maybe all of this and this. Maybe this one too. And then we'll click on the selection box and then we can kind of move this into a good spot. So maybe something like that. And then we can just remove the fixtures. We can move them all by just going up to view, visibility graphics, and then just removing all of the plumbing fixtures from this view, just like that. And that looks really, really nice. And so we can go ahead and tag all the pieces of pipe. So if we go to annotate, tag all. Now we don't need every single piece. We might want to only tag like this piece, these pieces right here. So I can also just select the pieces I want to tag. I could also just use like a typical tag too. It's really up to you guys how you want to do this stuff. I think that's good for now. So let's try to annotate, tag all, and we'll use pipe tags. We'll create OK. And again, they're way too big. So we'd have to change the scale to something like this. And that looks okay. Doesn't look great, but let's see what it looks on the sheet. So let's go to our sheet and we have to pull this sanitary isometric into the sheet. So I'm going to pull the main one into the sheet just like this and we'll click. And you can see that this sheet is way too small for us. So we might want to put the sanitary isometric on its own view. We could do that. Or we could kind of just make the scale the same. I think down here, I think this scale was 1/4 inch. So let's make this one 1/4 inch as well. So right now it's 1/2. Let's go down to 1/4. And that looks a lot better. And so now it fits on the sheet. We can kind of align it, something like this. That looks pretty good. And we'll click into this, move this over. Now we have to move our other view, the copy we made, into this view. So I'm going to just drag it in. And you can see it's way too big for this view. So I think I'm going to have to double click into it and maybe make it a little smaller. So I'm just going to go over here and we'll just double click into it. And I'm going to change the scale. Let's try to use this 1/2 inch scale. That looks pretty decent. Now we're going to use the same technique we did for the other one and just use typical. So I'm going to go ahead and go to annotate, tag. I'm going to right click on this guy right here and say create similar. This time we're going to use a leader tag by the free end and we'll just tag this piece and go over. Now you can see the tag gets a little crooked, but that's okay. We can fix that by just going like this. And then let's just use a little typical text right here. We don't need a leader, so click here, say typical, and then we can kind of use our arrow keys to kind of move this into the spot just like that. And now we can get rid of all of these tags right here because they're just a little too big. Just like that, we're getting rid of those. And then we could tag anything else we need. So maybe I could right click on this, create similar, and we could do the same thing down here. We can kind of tag these pieces. Again, the tag kind of jumped a little bit on me. you can just fix it up just like that. And then we could use that technique we talked about before by holding Control, and we could just tag all these little pieces right here. We just need to make sure that when we're all said and done, we change the host. So I'm going to pick a new host, click, and then I'm going to click on this one, pick new host, click, and then I'll click on this one, pick new host, click. All right, that looks pretty dang good. And so let's just double click out of this view. Now I want to remove this little selection box, so I'm going to right click, hide it in this view by the element. You could do by a category as well. I'd actually recommend that. So we'll deactivate the view, and then we're just going to move this down. We're going to call this Lavatory Sanitary Connections. It doesn't really matter what we call it. And now we can kind of move this view up here, and hopefully it fits a little better. Maybe we want to put it right there, and then we can just move both of these views down a little bit. So I'm just going to nudge them down. Now I noticed that I accidentally used the text on the sheet in this view right here. That's usually not what we want to do, so I have to fix that. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this text. So I'm going to use click copy, and then I'm just going to delete it. And now we're going to go into this view and make sure we add the text in the view. So I'm going to hit text, arrow, and I'm just going to go ahead and point to it and Control V. And then we're just fixing this so it's in the view now. And now when I move the view, you'll see that the text will move with it. So I'm going to hold Control and get both of these views up here and do something like that. All right, so let's move this one kind of over so we can fit it on the sheet to a point right there. That looks pretty decent. And then we could also move this one over, maybe right on top of the lavatory, something like that. You can play around with how these look. Now the last thing I might want to do is I might want to do a zoomed in version of this area, because I'm not going to be able to tag all those little pieces of pipe. So I'm going to use a section for the view for that area, and we're going to put that right down here. So that will hopefully summarize all the different kinds of views you guys can create. Oh, so we still need to start tagging this thing. So I'm going to double click into it, and I'm just going to click on the fixtures I want to tag, just like this. And we're going to go to annotate, tag all, only the selected objects in the view, hit OK, and they're already tagged. Now we can do a crossing selection or a window selection and only get the fixture tags, just like this. And then I can use my arrow keys again, and we can kind of do something like that. Maybe I want to move the WC2 over here, just like that. And I got to make sure I tag these floor drains. So we'll just use this tag right here, create similar, and I don't want an arrow, I just want to pop it on there, and then we'll move these up at the same time. So I'm just going to use my arrow keys, and just like that. And now we have pretty much everything tagged. We're going to go ahead and change or move this over to here, and that looks pretty good, guys. Now I might want to tag all the mains in this view, as well as maybe some of these pipes that are typical. So let's do that. So let's go to the tag command. So I'm going to go to, maybe we'll click on, oh, we didn't create any pipe tags yet. So I'm going to tag by category, and we got the pipe tag. So I'm going to use the free end, and we're going to click here, click, click. Now you have to click twice if you want to get this right. And then we're just going to click here, and then we're going to click here. And you'll notice that this tag is not playing well with me. So we need to actually create a different kind of tag for when we're doing piping like this. But for now, I'm just going to use this one. So we got that size, and then we could do the same thing down here. We could click on this one. And then remember, when we make that copy, we have to pick a new host and click this guy, because now it's registering this piece of pipe. So that looks great. And we could go ahead and hold Control. And since all of these should be the same size, we can kind of just hold Control and do this the whole time. Just trying to make this look nice. Just like that. That looks pretty good. And then we can kind of use our little typical. So I'm going to use some text here. We'll just click into here, and then we'll just kind of nudge this into the right spot. And maybe we'll use one more tag down here. So I'm going to right click this one, create similar, use the free end up here, and we'll just go something like this. Move this guy over and move it over like that. And we can also add to this tag. So I'm going to click on it. We're going to add, and we'll add this guy. So now we have two, something like that. That looks pretty good. Maybe we'll move this up a little more and move this up a little more. That looks great. And then we would also maybe want to tag some of these mains. So let's go to tag by category, and we'll get rid of the leader this time. And this time I'm just going to hover into the pipe, do something like that. Tag that guy, tag that guy, tag this guy, tag this guy. Just making tons of tags on here really quickly for you guys. That way you guys have an idea of how this works. That looks pretty good. Now I can do the same thing. I can take these tags over here, hold Control, and throw it over here. And we'll use our arrow keys to kind of nudge that. Remember, we have to pick a new host. We're going to pick this host, and then we're going to use the same technique here, just like that. And then we'll use this tag. We'll create similar, right click, create similar, and we'll tag these just like this, trying to hit all of the things we need to tag. And we'll continue on tagging. We'll create similar right here and tag this. And we're just tagging all of these pieces right here, making them look nice and pretty. That looks good. We might want to use a leader tag down here. So I'm going to go ahead and use one of these. I'm going to right click, create similar, and we're going to use the leader with the free end. And I'm just going to click on this pipe right here. And then we'll just maybe do something like this. Now, if you don't like the loops, you can always click on it and go to edit type, and you can change the leader arrowhead to a arrow filled 15 degree. So if you like using the arrows, you can totally do that. But just remember, it's going to change them for every single tag. So whether you use the loops or the arrows is up to you guys. I actually kind of like the arrows. So I'm going to go ahead and right click and create similar on this piece right here. I'm just going to go ahead and tag it like that. And then we have another piece right here, which might be better using an arrow tag right here. So I'm going to create similar from here, and we're going to use the free end, and let's tag this piece right here. And we're just moving this just like that. All right, so we have about everything tagged in this view. And so we also might want to tag the vent piping up here. So I'm going to go up here, and we're going to move this. And remember, when we do something like this, we need to make sure that it's referencing the right host. So I'm going to pick the new host. That looks good. And maybe we want to bring it over here and do something like this and say this is typical. So I'm going to hold Control, and we're just going to copy this over. I'm just going to go ahead and move this up a little bit more, smidge. And that's looking pretty good, guys. I think we're just about done. We also could tag these carriers. That might be kind of cool. So I'm going to right click, create similar, and I'm going to tag this carrier. So I'm going to click into it and click over here like this. And we're going to call this CC for closet carrier. And it's kind of hard to see this arrow. So I'm going to, maybe I might want to point to another carrier that's a little easier to see. So I can like kind of hold Control, and we can point to one down here and click there. And maybe we delete this one and we use the little typical text down here. That looks pretty good. And then we'll make sure we put all of this stuff on a schedule. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that as well. And then the last view I talked about is maybe we want to use a section view. So let's go to our floor plan, and let's create a section view real quick. So we're going to go to section up here and go from left to right. Oh, our sections aren't showing. So we need to go to our visibility graphics and go down to sections under annotation categories and turn them on. And now we have all these sections, and we're just going to move this up. And this one's actually going to show up on my plan. So I want to make sure it looks nice. So I can kind of pull this over, something like this. And then we're going to go to this view by clicking on it and right clicking and say go to view. And then I want to kind of move this down. I don't need it that high. Move this over. And I might want to change the detail level to fine. That looks good. And I can kind of change it from hidden line to shaded. Something like that looks pretty good. And let's see what this looks like on a sheet. So let's go to our sheet, and let's just drag this new view. So it's a new section view up here. I think it's probably section 3. So let's just drag it down, and we can make it a little bigger. So I'm going to double click into it, and let's try 3/8, and let's try 1/2. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and just move this to right here. And we're going to move this title over to here, move this underline over to here, And again, we don't want to see the crop region. So if I do double click into it, I can deselect crop region. That looks good. And click over here. And again, this line is way too long. So I'm going to click on this view and we're going to move this title line way over, just like that. Now I could also tag all this stuff in this view if I wanted to. So if I double click into here, we can do the same kinds of things we were doing before. So maybe I want to select all my water closets just like this and go to the annotate, go to filter, make sure we only have the tags, and then we can use our arrow keys to kind of go click on this tag, right click, create similar, and then I don't want a leader this time. I'm just going to kind of hover into this and click. And you can see it's right here. I think I can use the copy command on this one. So we just have to pick a spot that's going to be consistent, maybe this spot right here. And then we can just click and you can see now it's consistently tagging everything. And that's because we're in a section view. You can't really do this as well in 3D views. Now here's the thing. This closet carrier actually is a different type of carrier than this one. So maybe we want to label this one as left hand. So -LF. I believe that's the left hand one. Let's double check that. So if we click on this guy, you can see the L right here. It's a left hand. And then, oh, I should say LH. And look at that. They all update automatically. That's why I love Revit. So I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to go CC-right hand, hit yes, and look at that. They're all perfectly aligned and everything's looking great. And now we can go and tag all of these pieces too. So if I want to tag all of these little pipes right here, I can do that all at once, which is really nice. So I'm just going to click on all the pipes that I want to tag in this view. I do love these section views because they allow you to tag things, something like this. And we'll go to annotate, tag all, and we'll select pipe tags, hit OK, and look at that. We have all these little tags. Now I didn't tag the vent piping here, so we could do that. So I'm going to go ahead and right click and say create similar on this. And we'll click create similar. And maybe I want to tag it right there. And so now I can just use my copy command, go up here to copy, and we can just copy this multiple times across here, getting nice consistent heights. I could kind of move this one up a little bit. And I forgot to tag this piece of water piping, so I could do it right there. And we also need to tag our drinking fountain. Look at that. Now we don't want this level to be intersecting this right here. So I can really just remove levels if I want, or I could just move the whole view. So I'm going to deactivate this view, click on my view, and then use my arrow keys to kind of nudge this over to the left, just like that. And then maybe we want this view to kind of line up with this one over here. So I'm just going to do that real quick. And so everything's kind of lining up, looking very nice. I might want to move this to the left a little bit more to give myself a little bit more space for my sanitary. I'm just going to move this back to right here. And you'll notice that my water is a little too high, so I'm going to move this one down so it's more consistent with my sanitary, and we'll move this down as well to here. We can maybe move this to the left a little bit more to give us a little bit more space. And we're just cleaning this up a little bit. And maybe we'll move this here, use my arrow keys. And we want these to kind of snap so they're lined up right here. And then the last thing I might want to do is tag my floor plan because I didn't do that. So in the floor plan, I actually want to show all of my piping as a medium detail level. So I'm going to click on the medium button right here. And you can see that my piping looks like that. If I click on the thick lines, you'll see what it really looks like. And so these are the thick lines. And then I can go ahead and tag all of my pieces. So I'm going to just use the tag by going to annotate, tag by category, or I could select tag all. It just depends on what I want to do. I'm just going to go ahead and tag these individually, just like this. We're just tagging all of these pieces where we think we need to. Try to be consistent. And we're just kind of tagging the main pieces because we've tagged most of the stuff in the other views. And that's what's nice about creating multiple views is because we can now show that we have multiple ways to tag things. We're just going to tag this RPZ. I don't want to use this box. I want to use this standard one. And then maybe I want to tag all my plumbing fixtures. So I'm just going to select the plumbing fixtures I want to tag right here. I want to select these four. like that. And I want to select my water closets right here and maybe my floor drains. And now I'm going to use my filter command. So I'm going to go up to filter and I only want to do plumbing fixtures. I'm going to use my annotate tag all command. We're going to go to plumbing fixtures, type on standard, hit OK. And now these have all been tagged. I'm going to use my window selection to get all these tags. We'll use the filter command. We're going to select plumbing fixture tags. I'm just going to move them out to the view, just like that. We'll do the same thing with the water closets down here. Let's go to filter, only want plumbing fixture tags. I'm going to move those consistently down here. That looks good. We'll move our lavatory tags consistently together. We'll move our tags on the right side consistently together. And then we'll move our floor drain tags consistently together. So let's just move them down just like this. Now this is looking really, really good. We're just about done, but there's one more thing that I might want to do. This is totally up to you guys. You're probably going to have to do this because most of our drawings are black and white. And so right now you can kind of see the different systems by the colors, but a lot of times we have black and white and we might need to denote the systems of these pieces of pipes. So for instance, we might need to tell that this is the cold water system, even though it is in the water isometric right here. And then also here, we might need to say that this is the sanitary piping, and then this is the vent piping. So how would we do that? Well, there's a lot of different ways to do this. One way we could do this is by putting the system in our tags. And so what we could do is we could go into this view right here. I could click on my tag and I can edit the family. And what we could do is we can add the system to this label. So if I go to edit, and you can see this is picking up all of the different pipe things. Or pipe parameters. If I go to system abbreviation and throw this in here, I might want to use an S for sanitary. So I'm going to load it into my project, hit OK, overwrite the existing. Now nothing happens, but if we go into the piece of piping and we go to piping systems right here, if we go to edit type, we can update the abbreviation of this system to S. And when we click OK, we now have an S after every single tag that we've created in this model. So we might have to clean things up a little bit. That's not too bad. We'll just kind of clean up, make sure that the S didn't ruin anything. It doesn't look like it did. Now, these pieces of piping are actually not on the sanitary system. These are on the vent system. So we might have to change the system type for this to vent. So let's do that. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to deselect it from here, just like that. And then I'm going to deselect it from here, just like that. And then I'm going to deselect it from here, just like that. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to be able to change this system. So when I change it, it doesn't change all of my other system. So once I deselect it, I can go down here to sanitary and change it to vent. And you can see that the color gets different. And now I need to update the vent abbreviation. So if I go to piping systems and I go down to edit type and abbreviation, I just want it to be V for vent. And now you can see that a V shows up. Now, unfortunately, to change the systems right here, I'm going to have to do quite a bit of work. So I'm not going to do that. I'm only going to change it right here. So I'm just going to remove these and then I'm going to change this system. Now, the reason I remove it is because if I just change this to the vent system, watch what happens. First of all, I can't change it to the vent system because the vent system is not the same system classification. Okay, so I might want to show my super ninja trick, but I really think I might need to save that for anybody who buys my course. I have a system that will basically make your life really easy for separating the vent and sanitary systems. So if you check out my course at mepguy.com, I will show you how to separate these systems. That's a lot easier than doing it like this. So I'm just going to do it the way most people are doing it right now. So I'm not going to show any secrets here. So I'm just going to click on this. And I can't change it. Oh, once I move it from those pieces, I can change it to the vent system. And then once I reconnect it, it'll be okay. So that looks good. So that changed to vent. So that's looking great. Now I also would need to do it up here. So I'm going to double click into this view. And then we'll go ahead and move all of these back. So I'll do this for you guys. And once we have them off the sanitary system, then we can change them to anything we want. So let's change it to the vet. And then let's just use our connect into by clicking up here and clicking this. Oops. We might have to just drag all these pieces. So I'm going to do that for you guys. All right, almost done. Getting the last one here. All right, now we have all those changed to vent. Let's double click out of here. And that's looking good. And so now we've basically tagged the vet and the sanitary to kind of separate them. Now it's kind of understood that this is all the water, domestic water system. And for our hot water under the lavatories, we're probably going to use like point of use water heaters. So I'm not going to show any kind of water heater connections right now. So all of this blue piping is cold water piping. Now, if you just want to put a system on this, we can easily do it. All we have to do is click in here and click on piping systems and go to edit type. And then make sure we update the abbreviation to cold water and hit OK. Now the problem with this is all of these tags over here are now too big. But we could just quickly kind of move them like this. Maybe we'll just stagger them so they kind of show up. So do something like this. Maybe we'll just delete this one or move it. That looks okay. So there you have it. So right here you can see that it kind of screwed up this view a little bit by putting CW on these pieces. So again, we could just easily change the scale to something huge and hopefully that works. Maybe we'll just move these over like this and we'll just move this right here, move these pieces like that. And then we'll go over here and move these off the piping so you can see them a little better. And that looks much better. So just have to clean this up a little bit. All right, so that looks pretty good. And then we can deactivate the view. And there you have it, guys. We've basically created this entire plumbing system from scratch. I pretty much showed you everything I could think of as far as modeling goes. There's a few more tweaks that I could make. Like I don't love the way this coloring things. So I'm going to double click into this view. And we're going to go to our filters. We're going to go to View, Visibility Graphics. I'm going to go to Filters. We're going to add that plumbing fixture filter. And we're going to make sure we color all of our plumbing fixtures black. And click OK, click OK. And now all of our plumbing fixtures are black, so they look a little nicer. So the last thing I might want to do is I might want to change my vent color or my vent pattern to a different pattern so that it shows up differently than the sanitary piping. So I'm going to double click into the view, click on some of my vent piping, click on piping system up here, go to edit type, and we'll click on graphic overrides. And for this, I'm going to change the pattern of the vent system to a dash 3/32 and click OK and click OK. And now you can see my vent piping is showing up in a dashed color. Also, if I want to change the color of my sanitary, I can click on that and I can click down here and go to edit type and change the graphic overrides. And maybe I want to make my sanitary piping, I could make it black. Let's see how that looks. And say OK, apply. And now it looks kind of really nice and clean. And click OK. And so now you can see the difference between my sanitary and my vent piping has a different line pattern. So that's how you would make that change. So these are just all the types of things that you can do. And the cool thing about using the graphic overrides is it went ahead and completely overrid it in every single view in my project because it's changing the overrides based on the system. Okay, so that's like a little trick for you guys. All right, so that's all I have for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for Zern for sponsoring this video so I could put this out for free to everybody. And if you want to get access to this model, you can go to mepguy.com and download it. It's completely free. I will give you guys this whole thing to mess around with and play around with so you guys can learn even more about Revit. Thanks, guys.